Hey guys, and welcome to the Twitch stream, the art show with Simon, and this is Tim, and we're up to week 9 already, so this is pretty crazy. And yeah, welcome to the show. We've got some pretty cool stuff tonight. We've got our special guest, Peter Yong, all the way from Brisbane, and he's going to be going over some of his work and probably got some stories to tell, no doubt.
I hope so.
Yeah, so it should be.
That's why I'm here.
Cool.
That's all I'm doing here.
We're here to listen to Pete's stories. Yep. All right. Mm-hmm. And so first of all, going to kind of do some general things, like sort of show some of the things we've been up to the past week. Show some links and some kind of interesting stuff that we've been kind of checking out, things like that. We've had a couple of cool questions from some of the students, so we're going to go over some of that.
With Pete,
yep.
Hopefully with some stories.
That's
Pete's
right.
going to interweave some stories into that discussion topic.
Yeah. And
then we might draw something.
Yeah, that's right. I will do a few critiques and stuff as well, kind of quickly, and then we're going to kind of draw some stuff. And I think Pete and Tim are going to do a bit of a kind of a battle off kind of thing. Draw maybe
a battle off.
A very large battle off.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be epic.
You're just dumping that on us now.
That's right. Like, they didn't know about this 5 minutes ago.
Hey, we're peaceful people. We don't want to battle.
Yeah. No, I want them to fight.
We're friends.
I want it to be bloody and to the death, even. All right. So basically, we'll get into some of the just kind of what we've been doing and sort of show you guys some stuff. So, Did you have any art to show, Tim?
I did not.
Doing?
I have not done any personal art, but I've just finished literally like last week. I finished the last bit of freelance I've got lined up, so I will have much art next week.
Cool.
That's a promise, maybe.
All right. Well, we've got
but nothing now.
We've got some student work here that hopefully we'll get to later. Yeah, just as some of the things I was going to show was just some paintings.
It's a character.
There is a character, yes, very highly unusual for me, you know. But this was the intro to color. So the first week, kind of doing color in the digital painting class. So yeah, kind of showing people how to. This is all sort of just painted, just like no photos, you know, or anything like that. Just kind of like just painting. And then like as I went along, a few little sneaky photos in there, but nothing too much. It's all just fairly straightforward, fairly by the book, and just a lot of painting and things.
Yep.
And then in the evening class, it was another kind of one. Obviously, this is a bit rougher around the edges, trying to pull off a bit more stuff during the class. But once again, just painting from reference.
Right.
So I don't know if I've got that. Yeah, here.
Oh, it's appearing.
Hopefully. Oh no, it's all cut off. Don't worry, cropped everything. Oops. But basically, like just painting from a reference and then building things up, and then this was all just like little shapes that were just added in, so it wasn't kind of 3D or anything. Just little. I actually think I used a custom brush for one, and then a photo for something else. But basically, all the students have got to make a. What was the brief? Something like can't even think of what it was anymore. Something about lost for words.
A tree to do a custom brush. A tree.
No, it was like a fantasy world, and a hero is stumbling upon an ancient artifact of time.
Right.
So something like that. So basically, this is this temple sort of thing that the hero is going towards and stuff like that. So
cool.
Yeah, and there was all sorts of different like kind of techniques in here, and it just started out fairly slowly, just painting, and then sort of developed as it went along, kind of thing. So I'm not sure. Might be somewhat difficult to kind of go through layers here, but.
Yep, you've done the thing where you've left some layers that you hid before.
I should have. I know
so
the trick I should have done was
you're doomed to.
Yeah.
You'll never get it back. Cool.
Yeah, so you can see here, like it's pretty kind of.
So you started with
gross blocking,
a grey, like a grey black and white base.
No, this was just straight into color. So I think some of that stuff, it's interesting, isn't it? Like some of those things I'm adding over the top are actually kind of like dulling things down. So there you go. Like that's the initial kind of block in.
Yep.
Like that type of stuff. So it's just painting it up from there. And let's try and find this. And then kind of pushing all those things around, adding in a few little bits of photos here and there, but not too much. A lot of those plants and everything are actually painted with a brush that I made during the class. So just got like I showed a little trick. Actually, this is really cool, guys. So let's just quickly bring up the internet. Oh, there's Pete. Let's bring up this. Let's hide Pete. Sorry, goodbye. And like palm tree alpha. So like doing a search of what you want with using the word alpha afterwards can give you guys like things that are already kind of pre-cut out, or at the very worst on like a white background that you can just like kind of lasso and then even make into a custom brush or something like that. That you could. That's what I did in class. Literally just grab one of these, turned it into a brush and started painting. So some of this looks quite photographic in some areas, but a lot of it actually was just like brushes and things. Just kind of knowing how to put all those, together and stuff. So, and then there might have just been like a tiny little bit of photos here, just in those focal points, just to make it like pop a bit. So, So there's some things that we were kind of doing during the week. And
what else have you been checking out? Art-wise? What is new in Artland?
So we've got some
in Simon's Artland.
We've got some links here. Let's kind of open some of this stuff up.
Get some of this stuff up on screen.
It's basically just my art station, browsing. Nothing really. I don't know. I feel like we've shown you guys all the kind of like, Sparth and Craig Mullins and all that stuff, right? all the usual things. So
it's just like I think this is just a good opportunity to kind of, maybe if you missed something on ArtStation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there could be, a couple of things that people missed or something like that. So it's good to kind of see what other people are in, because often it's like often those algorithms and things kind of hide art. Like often I'll probably see more stuff that I'm kind of liking, and you'll probably see more stuff that you're liked and stuff like that. So it's always cool to see what other people what comes on your radar. That's pretty cool.
So there's some cool stuff. I thought this was really awesome, like different colors, kind of really interesting like brush strokes and stuff like that. So it was awesome. I kind of thought this one was this is just my I like jungle rock
giant
thing,
rocks
just
and moss.
I like it.
Mist. There's even a waterfall thingy, isn't there? Waterfall coming out of a rock.
Waterfalls. Got to have waterfalls.
It's pretty cool.
And this one here's for something completely different. But I just kind of thought this was like a really interesting...
Do you want to zoom up on some of them?
Yeah, like kind of just... Well, I thought even just the way this art station is laid out was kind of really nice kind of presentation. And there's a lot of kind of 3D stuff, but I thought that, there was just lots of really kind of nice, slick design work. And the way that things were presented, I thought was really nice. I think if you're an art director kind of looking at this stuff, this kind of feels very like I could employ this person and kind of know what I'm going to get. And the level that everything's at, like it all feels very consistent.
There is definitely a consistent eye, which again, like that's often one of those things you kind of talk about. How like that's often actually what people are paying for, is your eye and your ability to make good decisions. And especially when you're doing it in 3D, I feel like it's really important to have good presentation.
Like I think this stuff is great. If this is presented to clients and things, they're going to be like, "Oh, this is amazing!" Like it's all kind of laid out like this professional kind of design thing. Like and just
I think so often people forget that the job of concept art is to make people excited about what you're doing. And I feel like I don't really know whether this is. It feels like it says they're assets, so those are kind of actual sort of in-game assets. But if you're sort of presenting these things and maybe they're not in-game or something, you know what I mean? Or it just it gets people excited about the work and like what's possible, you know what I mean? If this is concept art or assets or whatever, just the more that you can present stuff and make it kind of nice, everyone gets excited. Money is easier, you know what I mean? The money tap stays open, easier, everyone sort of feels confident about the project. So much of it is about that, maintaining everyone's confidence in what's happening with the project. And I think a lot of that is just presentation and
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think the way this is presented really gives that kind of feeling, is that like it's all consistent. You kind of know what you're going to get. It's like you can get this, this freelancer in or employ them in house, and they're going to deliver you this stuff. And you can really see that from kind of their ArtStation.
It
page,
shows it feels like they care. Do you know what I mean? It feels like he cares about that asset. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas you could easily just be like, here's a bunch of stuff and. That's fine. I feel like people are often like, well, what's the difference? You know what I mean? If you present it or don't present it, it's the same thing. Whereas I feel like so much of what we do in entertainment design is about showing things in the best light possible. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole game really is.
Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's just to like kind of make, a lot of times make this sort of boring thing look cool, like a crate or whatever, and part of that is how you present it all as well as like kind of a package. Yeah, so that was something I sort of like checked out during the week.
And I would say that is definitely a really good example of if you are interested in 3D, I think that does seem to be, I talked about this before, but really critical to make sure that your presentation and your delivery stuff is really good, because it shows that you understand that the assets you're creating and going directly in front of a viewer who's paying money for the product, and you can't just be like, oh, whatever, it's the same thing, who cares if it's not quite finished. It's like
so
makes you relaxed. Makes you relax. It's not like this is okay, this person's got this.
So there were some things I kind of checked out, and awesome. You had some stuff as well, Tim.
Well, I just saw, I think this came up on Facebook, but there was like John Harris has a Vimeo page, and Pete's having a coughing fit.
Pete's dying in the background.
Pete is dying.
Tim's going to win this art battle really easy.
Pete's just going to be coughing.
I think we need to bring this up on the screen so we
need to watch the great coughing fit of 2017.
John Harris.
So people may not be aware of who John Harris is, but he's a traditional painter who, has been painting these kind of really epic. I think there's like a Pinterest book, and I first found his work by looking at this book, which is called Mass: The Art of John Harris. Sort of back when you found art in art books. And there's a couple of other ones. I think that one maybe out of
art in art books.
Well, as opposed to on the internet, because you couldn't find any.
Okay, right. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, you had to buy books. You know what I mean? And I was
That's what you meant. These days, art books do not contain art.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was. I remember seeing this book and being like, "Wow, this is really cool," because he has this sense of. I think it is there. If it's the second link up above, there's on the second. Up above in the second comment. Yeah, there. Yep.
This one?
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. That's just a Pinterest thing. It's just so you can see some of the work. So, I think like John Harris is one of these people who has influenced a lot of the concept artists today. People like sort of, Sparth, or, people who are painting these big sort of epic space scenes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
John Harris and these sort of artists, from the 70s and 80s and, like a little bit earlier were sort of, we're sort of doing this sort of work a long time ago, but obviously, it never made it into video games and stuff like that. And I think often they would work for film and stuff like that. But it's just really interesting because you can see some of the history of it. And again, like his ability to get the feeling of like, again, that feeling, the book is called Mass, but just that feeling of space and epicness and just these huge, alien structures is kind of really good. And obviously a traditional artist.
Yeah, and this stuff is all traditional guys, right?
Like, just oil paintings and things. Yeah. And so it's really good because I think it's influenced and sort of shaped a lot of concept art. And I think in all things, it's always really good to figure out where people's influences are. Do you know what I mean? Like, and where they sort of come from. And yeah, so I just saw like somehow he has this Vimeo page, and there's a bunch of like a couple of documentaries, and some of them are like half an hour, 20 minutes.
We'll paste the link in.
So paste the link in the chat, and they're really cool because he's very sort of articulate and talks about his process and his thought process, creating these images and sort of what's going on. So I thought that was interesting, because who he is. Just you know, it's probably good to know he exists. Check out some of his work, and yeah, it's just really interesting to see some nicely made little documentaries and stuff. I have no idea what they're about or who made them or what happened, but I was just like, oh, John Harris, like, oh, those are actually pretty
cool.
good.
Yeah, no, when I was a kid, I remember this book.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I don't know where it was, but maybe it, like, you know, I remember even being in primary school and this was in the high school library or something like that, and checking it out and go, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, this book's really cool. Yeah.
I mean, I would say at the time...
It's pretty old now.
It's quite old now, but again, like, he talks about some of the modern work he's doing, which is a bit more abstract. But, you know, you really get a feeling for, I guess, the thought process that goes into or went into creating those images back in the day, which were kind of very influential, right? It's hard to understate, or it's hard to overstate the extent to which they are influential to sort of modern concept art, and that feeling of space being colorful and sort of epic, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And like John Berkey is another sort of, you know, really great example of someone who, you know, sort of painted these kind of, you know, realistic, but sort of very fantastical things, you know. And so if you are interested in spaceships and, you know, space science fiction, I feel like you really should check out these artists who are kind of operating, you know, in the 70s and 80s and 90s, you know, before digital art was
it'd
around.
Be really cool to kind of find out who was influencing these guys, hey?
Mm-hmm.
Just to get to this stuff, because I feel like this is probably some of the stuff that we kind of like see now as like iconic spaceship design, you know. Like a lot of this, obviously, like Star Wars stuff is kind of like, you know, come from this, and
Destiny as well.
Well, yeah,
like stuff they did for Destiny.
Yeah,
so much like Berkey's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, lots of modern artists take huge reference cues from this stuff as well. So,
well, it's because it was really that there wasn't much of this around.
No, that's right.
You know, there was only a few people doing it because it was so specialized, because it requires a fairly high degree of talent and a very specific sort of interest, you know.
So, like, you know, this stuff's nuts, right?
Yeah, but there's like a strong history of sort of science fiction illustration, and there was a crossover of people who would do, you know, sort of NASA paintings, you know, paintings for NASA, talking about, you know, what would the future of space travel look like, and those are, you know, often there's crossover between those artists, and then people would say, I like drawing spaceships and technical stuff. Oh, you can draw book covers for science fiction. They're like, okay, you know, I'll do that. So they sort of get into that, and but
well, even some of the Elysium stuff, right? That was based on some of Sid Mead's original drawings that were done for NASA to work out some sort of, like, you know, zero gravity kind of like whatever setup space station kind of thing.
Yeah, and I talked a lot about how, like, Chris Foss is another artist.
Oh yeah, that's another one.
This, sort of range where, you know, create a lot of sort of science fiction spaceship art for kind of book covers and stuff like that. You know, back in the day, you know, before digital art was a thing, and
before we had the internet.
before the internet was a thing. And I think I actually I bought a Chris Foss art book the other day, and it was pretty good. So again, this stuff is highly influential, right? And a lot of these images are done, you know, with traditional media, you know, well before, you know, video games existed to a certain degree. And it's important to note again, like, you can see Chris Foss's work in Guardians of the Galaxy. I think he's credited as, you know, doing, you know, some design for that. And you can certainly see the influence there in a lot of those designs if you understand the.
Well, I'm pretty sure he do some stuff on, like, maybe one of those. What was, like, one of those epic, like, space game kind of, you know, in, like, the 90s or whatever, where you... Yeah, anyway, it doesn't matter.
But I'm pretty
Homeworld. Yeah, like Homeworld or something.
I don't know whether he did. It certainly... They took a lot of inspiration from that.
Didn't he do...
What was it?
Red Dwarf, like Starbug, and...
It could be,
potentially.
We should probably do some research so we're not just like, because I'm like
talking.
I'm on the verge of just saying, like, that sounds true.
No, there was another.
I think you work on Alien as well.
Yes.
Yeah, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was, if we get onto that Alien
I think
stuff.
Did Chris Foss did the Nostromo? Didn't he?
I think he did.
Yeah.
Oh, was that Ron Cobb?
Yeah, Ron Cobb did. I think
Google
they
it. Google it. Well, I'll Google it while you talk.
Google has the answer.
We have a Google.
Well, Ron Cobb did a lot of the drawings for that stuff. But I think it was probably a team effort, right? Like all those things, probably wasn't just one dude.
Totally. I mean,
coming up with all the stuff. But yeah, here you go. Yeah, it says Nostromo, Chris Voss, Ron Cobb, Ryan Johnson. So yeah. So it's really interesting, like learning some of that stuff because I know, like in a lot of classes, I've shown this, this ship. And being like, what's that from? And everyone's like, Halo? And I'm like, no. Try like 35 years earlier.
Yeah.
So,
It looks so much like the Halo ship. It's not funny.
Yeah.
Wonder how that happened.
Yeah. There's another, there's a drawing that basically just looks exactly like it's like one of these kind of things. But it was done by Ron Cobb, like in the 70s.
Originality is the art of hiding your sources.
Yeah. There we go. Some pretty cool Ron Cobb stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that is back in the day. That is for sure. So and
it's cool.
It's awesome, Tim. So thanks for like kind of showing some of that stuff. It's very cool. Hopefully that's a few artists that you guys haven't heard of before.
Yep. And
kind of check out and go like, whoa, like I didn't know this stuff was around.
I feel like that seems to be the theme of this show in general is like us talking about that. But I think it is because that's one of the interesting things. That's what I always think about is like, I bet people haven't seen this. You know what I mean? Because obviously we can look at ArtStation and say, here's the latest, coolest thing. But I think it's also important to kind of, I'm always saying, I always say, oh, so-and-so designed whatever or whatever. And everyone just looks at me in class and is like, what? Oh, and you've all seen this movie and it's like, no.
Yeah.
And the movie's like Blade Runner or something.
It's cool.
Like, so you've all seen Blade Runner, like Sid Mead that did that, and everyone's like, what's Blade Runner? Like, what? What
are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Go and just walk out of this room and watch Blade Runner now. You need to see this film.
It is interesting though, because you do like sometimes like, because like with having kids and stuff, I kind of actually look at some of that stuff and I'll show it to the kids, and you do get a bit of a different feedback on some of those things. Where some of those things you think are so cool, but then like they're not as cool as sometimes you think, right? Yeah, because you just have this stuff when you're a kid, and it was like the coolest thing existed then. But now, like every goddamn movie is like 1,000 times like crazier than those ones, But anyway, it's interesting. But this is where all this stuff kind of stemmed from. So I think that's really important to kind of look at and check out.
Well, it just gives you that, if you are interested in doing that kind of design, it's going to give you the edge in terms of just fleshing out your visual vocabulary, and then you can follow the trail back a bit more and maybe see again who influenced those guys, where did that stuff come from. There's actually a huge amount of science fiction art that happened for book covers in the 70s and 80s that a lot of those artists probably no one knows, they've sort of forgotten, but lots of people who made really good livings working for 20-30 years doing science fiction book covers, and they have a very specific look. They're often like shiny cylindrical spaceships and that sort of stuff, and these are the guys who kind of we remember, but there was tons of people doing stuff back then.
No,
anyway.
that's cool. All right, so do you want to share your screen, Pete, and maybe show some stuff? So we're going to cut to Pete, and
cut to Pete.
Yeah, and he's going to
I've finished my coughing fit now, so
touch wood.
How do we get?
Woohoo!
You can just see me, or
no, we can see your screen now, Pete.
Yep.
Yep. It's nice and clear. It's awesome.
All right. Cool. Yeah. I just want to show some stuff that I've done recently. So I don't know how many. Most people on the stream would know who I am, I guess.
No.
Some of my students.
Let's assume not. By the way, this is Peter Yong.
I'm Peter Yong.
Yep.
So I've been working for about 12 years now, and mostly in video games. I actually studied animation, so that's kind of where my base, I guess. And
you studied in Brisbane?
I studied in Brisbane at the Queensland College of Art. There was an animation course up here.
Yep.
And yeah, it was a half decent class. The class sizes were quite small. There was only 25 people accepted every year. yeah, I had a really good life drawing teacher, and yeah, and then after I worked there, there was a Disney studio in Sydney that was still open, and that was my first. That was actually my second job, my first proper job in the industry, and I was doing in between, which I don't know if many people know what that is, but it's a hand drawn animation. They have an animator who does the keyframes, and then assistants do all the drawings in between.
Yeah.
So that was all on pencil and paper, and I was the second last intake that got accepted into Disney at that time. So that was 2000.
And how many people were like doing in betweens there at that kind of time?
Yeah, people were doing in betweens.
No, how many people were doing it?
How many?
Yeah.
Oh, the team would have been 50.
Yeah, cool.
Maybe more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole studio was about 250 people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a pretty
pretty
big place.
Maybe 60. Yeah.
Yep.
So the drawings were, and you know, they had to be clean in betweens as well. So it was kind of a factory job, really. It was like, it felt like glorified tracing, as a lot of people
Yep.
kind of call it. But it was a cool introduction to, you know, the industry and seeing how a production works. You know.
Yep.
But anyway, after I finished my traineeship, which was 6 months, and after working on the project for maybe 2 months, they announced that they were going to close down because you know, 2D animation is not really a thing.
I thought it was because Pete. I thought it was because Pete had arrived at the studio.
Yeah. And so yeah, and after uni, I actually got offered a job at Pandemic, which is a game studio up here in Brisbane, on a game called Destroy Humans 2. So when they announced that, I went, well, I might go into games. And they offered me an animation position, but this was 3D animation, but they didn't have an animation position at the time when I asked them to do work. So they were like, can you model? And I went, I probably can. And so I came up and I
Is that what you actually said, or did you say I can?
No, I said I probably can. And they're like, oh, we'll see what you can do. And so I flew up and I did a test. And it was the first time I ever textured something. And I had to model the Statue of Liberty in like under 150 polygons or something like that.
Nice.
And so anyway, I got the job and I was modeling for about 6 months.
Yep.
So that's what I was doing. So modeling, you know, props. And then they had an animation position come up, and so I did that.
Yep.
For probably about 2 years.
So was your animation course a 3D animation course? It was a 2D animation course, or was it both?
It was a 2D animation course with 3D kind of slapped in.
Right. So because that would have been like, what year was that?
2000. I started in 2001. No, 2002.
Yep.
2004.
Yep. So it would have been like just when sort of 3D animation was becoming more of a thing.
Was coming in. Yeah.
Yep.
And so anyway, and then I wasn't too happy with video game animation and the project I was on. And there was a concept art position that popped up in the studio.
Yep.
And I applied for it, and I got denied, and then I waited for a bit because my stuff was pretty bad at the time. And then the art director said, would you still like that position because we can't find anyone better than you? And I went, okay. So that's how I started concept art.
Yep.
So that was like 2006.
Yep.
No, 2007 is when I started concept art.
Cool.
And I was just pretty much just drawing back and front views of cars and changing lights. So
yep.
the game's cars kind of looked like Commodores, but didn't actually look like Commodores. So it was a very, very not a very creative concept art position. But I was very happy I was drawing, and also being surrounded by some of the other concept artists there was really exciting.
Yep.
So yeah, that was cool. And then I worked with Simon. That's where I met Simon. I moved to Melbourne and worked on De Blob 2, set next to Simon. and I was employed as an environment concept artist, and that didn't go down very well because I had Simon, and my stuff kind of sucked. But I did my best, and I kind of started doing other things like characters and storyboards and icons and props.
Yep.
So yeah, and then I've been gotten back into the animation kind of industry, and so I've been doing character designs for animated shows and recently storyboards.
Yep.
So that's been cool. And the last few months I've been working with a company in Finland called Supercell, which make a game called Clash of Clans and Clash Royale.
Yep.
And I've been drawing comics for them, which I can show you right now.
Cool. Yeah, do it. Show us some stuff.
So, actually, first off, I'll show you some of the oops. So this is some of the character design stuff I did. It's a few years ago, not 2014, but it's for a show called Bottle Snipes and Gumballs, which is on Netflix at the moment. And yeah, I was pretty much asked to design characters, so they'd give me a brief, and then I'd just run through a whole bunch of different ideas. Obviously, I'd number them.
Yep. And
then the director would pick which one he liked, and then I'd just develop it up. So I would draw little expressions, poses, and then turnarounds.
Yep.
So it was a really quick turnaround. I actually did these when I was in America and I was studying at CDA, and this was like my part-time job while I was studying.
And CDA is the Concept Design Academy.
Concept Design Academy, yep.
Yep.
In Pasadena.
Yep.
So yeah, so it was a really fun job. They're really fun little characters. So this is my first one. So I didn't really know what the style of the show was because it's my first job. So I just went everywhere.
Yep.
So did they have a style locked in at this point or not yet?
They had like this pilot that they made. But so I kind of looked at that, but they were like, "Oh, we just want you to go crazy." So I was like, "Well, if you want me to go crazy, I'll go crazy." So I did.
Yeah.
And some of these are probably out of style, but but it's good to show the mixture of things and push things as far as you think you can push them.
Well, that way, I always think they can show it to other people, and they can rule out directions. You know what I mean? It's not always about finding the right one. It's about saying like, no, we tried that. Here it is. Look, we think it doesn't work as well as something else.
Yep. Or there might be something in the extreme version that like, oh, we kind of like that idea. Can we put this into, or bring it back a bit?
Yep.
Which is, it's pretty much how all this kind of work happens, It's like that they come up with an idea, and your job is to just bust out just as many ideas as you can.
Yep.
And a lot of them get thrown out, but that's part of the process. And I think that's important to keep the client involved with the process. It makes them feel like they're really they're involved in it, and you're working on this together. And also, a big part of it is I don't really know what's in their head.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I often bring up the Peter Yong sort of work, like the body of work, because I think often students they come to like CDW or people are kind of I feel like when we sort of talk about entertainment design, people often think about games like Destiny or like Halo or like guns, and because those are the things that are probably the most popular. Do you know what I mean? And also the thing that people who are kind of at that age, where you're out of high school, you know what I mean?
The kind of stuff you're into, I guess. So
it's like it's what's on your radar, and I feel like a lot of people are actually like they kind of like that, but they also maybe have more of a different personality. You know what I mean? So I often get people sort of saying like, well, what if I want to do like funny stuff? And I always sort of say like, I feel like Pete, you've really kind of made a jobs for yourself to a certain degree, because I think you have like a sensibility, and it is a bit more fun and wacky. You know what I mean? And I feel like you're probably able to, like, there's no way I would be able to come up with the same ideas that that you've sort of got. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a level of kind of like weirdness to them that I just kind of like don't do. You know what I mean? And I think it's people I feel like often are holding back that stuff because they're sort of like, I'm maybe, you know, I've got this really weird idea, and so I often show people like, no, look at Pete's stuff. You know,
this is how weird
Pete
it
is
can get.
weirder than you will ever imagine. You know what I mean? You can go pretty crazy, but I think it's just, I remember you saying that like it was kind of when you really embraced just sort of saying, this is the kind of fun stuff I like to draw. Yeah. And I think that's worked really well for you because you've kind of done that, and then people who are after like something very specific kind of seek you out and seem to have sort of found you and said, can you do that thing that you do on sort of our project? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think I think there's probably just as many like wacky, fun, cartoony games and shows as there are like, you know, games with guns and that kind of thing as well. So I think there's plenty of work out there for. Yeah,
no, there is. And it may be that there's even more, you know, but I think it's just, it's often for maybe aimed at like a slightly younger audience. So it's the kind of thing that, you know, people who are just thinking about careers, you know, it's often more like sort of 18 to mid 20s. And I feel like that's when people are more like, you know, the sort of stuff that they play and the sort of stuff that, you know, the sort of stuff that gets shared a lot more on ArtStation and those sorts of things is, you know, it's more of that sort of Halo, Destiny sort of vibe. But yeah, it's important to say to people like, you know, Pete has a very sort of, you know, successful, healthy career drawing stuff that I feel like a lot of students may want to draw, but they're just not sure about, you know, is there any work out there? But, you know, there is a lot of stuff. There's all sorts of jobs, you know what I mean, for doing all sorts of stuff.
And I mean, it's probably also, you know, my animation background as well. It's probably maybe a bit of a different background to a lot of concept artists. I think a lot of concept artists come through with like an illustration background or
totally,
or they're into like really serious comics or something like that. And it's something. It's actually really funny. Like I've been into that stuff as well, but like, you know, my favorite anime ever or favorite cartoon ever is Akira, and possibly my favorite sci-fi movie is Blade Runner. But when I draw, this just feels right. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
It's always, I don't know what it is. When I draw something serious, it just doesn't. It just doesn't feel right. But when I draw something fun and I just push it and I just see what happens and I, you know, draw it really well, I don't know. It just. It just works for me.
But no, so, I think that's a really important point, because I think a lot of people sort of, you know, they may like looking at some things, but just because you like looking at it or you appreciate it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what is going to get you up in the morning every morning, you know, and really make you excited. It's you know, it's strange that it doesn't necessarily work that way, I guess. But,
it is. It really is. But also like, so here's some more stuff. But also, like, if you have a look at my, so I made a comic last year, but this kind of it was kind of like I was trying to mush all the things I love into one thing. So like ridiculous, you know, like ridiculous, quirky characters. Martial arts. Like I loved like fight scenes in comics. One of my favorite fight scenes is in a manga called Appleseed, and there's this scene where she like fights like 5 guys, and it's this epic like 20-page sequence of her just kicking ass, and it's done so well. So it was a combination of that. I don't think I didn't have any pictures, but I've also got mechs in it as well. And I've always loved, you know, like robot anime. You know, the first one I watched was Macross. When I was a kid, and also of course Transformers, like every kid. But
So did you watch Macross or did you watch Robotech?
I watched Robotech,
which is not Macross.
Which is different, I know. But
I just thought I'd say that in case you get flamed in the chat, Pete. I thought.
No, I watched Robotech.
Yeah.
Used to tape it on VHS.
Yeah.
But I think it was the second time they aired it. It was like in the 90s, and they aired it for the second time or something like that.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool.
So, all right, let's have a look at.
Yeah, so this is the comic you've been doing.
So this is the Clash Royale stuff. So, this is the most recent comic that I did, and they're trying to do. I don't know if anyone's played this game, Clash Royale, on iPhones, but it's a pretty fun game. It's like this a PvP tower defense kind of competitive game.
Yep.
I didn't actually know that much about it until I started this job and I got really into the game.
Yep.
My older brother has actually been playing it since it was released. And it's really cool. The characters are quite fun. And they want to start these comics to kind of just kind of add more to the world.
Yep.
And also, this character is called the Mega Knight, and he's one of the latest characters. So they like to have a little comic that kind of goes along with events that happen in the game or new characters that are introduced.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be a popular thing these days.
It is. Yeah, and it's funny. It seems like there's a common trend for games not to be just, they release a game and then forget about it. It seems that, a lot of companies, they have a game and they support it for a long time, and then they build the community around it, and, they want content. And it's quite insane. With Clash, they have a whole web series called Clashorama, and there's like 11-minute episodes with all these characters, and it's written by a bunch of ex-Simpsons writers.
Yep.
I think they even have a convention in Finland called ClashCon. So yeah, it's really quite interesting.
Yep.
But it seems like that's kind of the way a lot of games are going. And it's they want to keep people kind of interested in the game.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Well, I guess it's like it's kind of a, to a certain degree, it's a bit of a zero-sum game, it seems like, in the current climate, where, if you have a free-to-play game or something where, you're sort of, the company needs a consistent kind of, flow of players and stuff to kind of get that critical mass, it's kind of, you either put all your effort into maintaining that community and feeding that community, or kind of like the whole thing dies. And it's kind of, if you need to dump $100 million into comics and web series and things like every year, there, if that makes you, one of the top games, what I mean, it's money well spent. Whereas, if you don't support your community, then people go somewhere else, which is
exactly.
But yeah,
this game is a game that has no end.
Yeah. Yep.
There is no end. It's it's like, you're always there's no single player involved. You're always going up against another person.
Yeah.
I think each match is about 2 minutes or something like that.
Right.
So but it's really, really fun.
Yep.
So I actually wrote this comic as well.
Yep.
So this was like my rough. So this is what I sent them. I just like, I've got an idea. What do you think of this?
Yep.
Because they sent me like a little brief, and it was like, we want a 2-page comic, a 2-panel comic, sorry, and we want to make a joke about how the Mega Knight can't do anything else with his, mace gloves.
Yeah.
So he can't do anything like day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So this was like the idea that I came up with, and then I sent it to them, and then the writers had some suggestions of just like making the text a lot, or simpler.
Yep.
Because it really doesn't need that much.
Yep.
So and then I just finished up the artwork. Here's another one I did.
And Pete, is this is the delivery for this mostly on the mobile? So is that like kind of the
I think that's their primary like platform, is because they have a thing called News. What's it called? News Royale in the app.
Mm-hmm.
And so you click on it and these comics come up. They also have these on all their social media.
Yeah.
So like on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, they share these. But I think primarily it's built for like having it in the app. And that's what was tricky about. This is the second comic I did, and they found that on phones this was a bit hard to read because it has 5 panels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's why they were like trying to shrink the panel size down.
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
Yeah.
This is a comic where they introduced a character called the Night Witch and her little bats. This is the first one I did.
Yep.
I've just got another one, which I'll show you. This is like a step by step. So this is how one of them started. So they had a new character called the Bats. So they just said they want a 1-panel comic.
Yep.
That was my brief. 1-panel comic about bats. That's all they gave me. So I was like, okay. And I knew that they were really cute and adorable. So I just made these. Came up with like 3 ideas. So this is one of them.
Yep.
And this is another one with the Night Witch. So that's like, she's obviously tied in quite closely with the bats.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's another unit. She kind of summons these little guys.
Yep.
So I thought it'd be cute for them to be giving her like a little "I love you" card.
Yep.
And then again, kind of like that contrast between these cute little bats, but they're actually like stone cold killers.
Yeah.
Which is kind of something I played with in the first comic. So it's just that little idea of them sleeping calmly but dreaming about destruction. And it kind of goes with the game as well. But anyway, they liked this idea.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like they picked this idea and they were like, oh, can you have a play with the background and have a play with the card and different illustrations.
Yep.
So I had like dead bodies and stuff. I had them like burning in fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this background that was like a little cave with like a hint of a lounge. Like a medieval lounge, fireplace. Like the Night Witch holding up a goblin head, a decapitated goblin head.
Yep.
So they like this background and they like one of the other cards. So this is where it ended up in the final.
Yep. Yeah, cool.
Which is cool.
Awesome.
And it was quite cool, like, all these they're rough, but they read.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about making fancy drawings, but I'm thinking about making readable, clear drawings that that they can understand, and hopefully the joke comes through. And then once that's done, like all the work's done, and I can just go and finish it.
Yeah. And that's a fairly specialized skill, I find. Like I feel like if you've been doing a lot of storyboarding, I feel like often people, like, when people are starting out and they try and do that, just draw like little thumbnails or something, it is really tricky to kind of do stuff and stay simple and be clear and be able to just iterate those ideas.
Yes.
But probably having that animation background, the storyboarding background, makes you're probably able to do like really, really good storyboards like that and ideas for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think it definitely, like, the storyboarding helped a lot. And when you're storyboarding, you're not thinking about making things pretty.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're so conscious about time.
Yep.
Because you usually don't have much time to make hundreds of panels, so you just have to like get the idea across as clearly and simply as possible.
I often also think, like, people, because I think most people would look at those drawings and say, like, they kind of do look pretty, Do you know what I mean? Like there's like an elegance to them, but I think it's one of those things where like you have to understand that those drawings are done really quickly with sort of it's so people will often try and copy that style, but they're maybe taking too long. You know what I mean? And it's like you really can't get that kind of animator. I've often sort of there's a quality to animators' work where it's so loose and kind of precise, and you know what I mean? And it's like I'll be like, how do you do that? And so often it's just like you have to draw as fast as humanly possible and just constantly be thinking in this like brutalist kind of efficient sort of manner, and then you get these kind of really nice fluid kind of clear drawings as a result. But yeah, it's kind of it's a really sort of effective drawing technique.
It is. It's a practice thing, really. It's hard to describe.
Oh yeah, you just need to do it.
Yeah, and when I was teaching, you know, a lot of students were like, how do you draw? You know, do so many drawings. I said the way I did it was like, you know, I learned on the job, and you know, at Disney you had to do 75 drawings a week. These are clean drawings.
Yep.
So that was one drawing every 20 minutes.
Yep.
You know, for 8 hours a day.
Yep.
And at that time, when they were that was probably their darkest hour, because I recently lived in Sydney and I worked with some of those guys again.
Yeah.
And they were kind of telling me that it wasn't a particularly good time at that period.
Yep.
And the thing is, if you didn't make your drawings, then they'd give you like maybe 2 warnings at most, and then you're fired. That's it.
Yep.
You're at the door.
Yeah.
So, and I saw it happen. It wasn't an idle threat. They
right. Wow.
Flat out fire people. Yeah.
Yep.
They were like, and the trainee program was to weed out
the slow ones.
Couldn't keep up.
The slow and the weak. Yep.
It was. Yeah, it really was.
Yeah. Well, I
said I can't put like that kind of pressure is so hard I can't simulate it, because how do you can't do that. It's very hard in a classroom kind of environment.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things like when you start working anywhere in a studio environment, is that like there's no way you can simulate that feeling you have of like trying to do stuff so you don't get fired. Yeah. And it either makes or breaks you, that's for sure.
And, I mean, getting paid is a huge motivator, you know, to working, and like being, if I don't do this, I'm not going to get paid this week, and can't eat. That's kind of huge.
Problem solved. Draw faster. Yeah.
Yeah. It is just another. So they also asked me to do like a little cover image for a lot of the comics. So this is just another example. So this is the rough here, and then the finished product.
Yep. Cool.
So again, kind of pushing the cuteness of the bats. Yeah, that's just one I kind of like.
And I noticed like with the characters, it's all
pretty much there in the rough.
Yep.
But with the characters, Pete, there's a bit of like you've got quite a bit of like almost like not like cell shaded is the wrong word, but you've got a bit of a kind of, you know, shadow pass, like harsh line. Is that because it's for like a smaller screen? Like, is that, or is it just because that's their style? Or is it just something you're going with?
It's just something I'm going with, but it's something that it's just very clear and reads easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess I could like render them up to make them look like 3D things, but they also have another series of comics called Clashorama.
Yep.
And so that was something I was looking at as well. And with these first few comics, they just said to me like, "We want to see your style."
Yep.
And this was just something that just comes naturally to me.
Yep. So it's just what you
like
do.
It looks
yep.
kind of like clear and crisp and
cool.
And that was something that you know, the art directors told me about the style is, you know, it's very clean.
Right.
You know? And if you look at the models, they're like so clean and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's got a really nice style, the game, actually. There's a bunch of like 3D animated ads for it, which you might have seen.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of those. They look good.
Yeah.
Yeah. here's some more TV show stuff I did a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where this might be an ABC show or something, but it's called Kazoops.
Mm-hmm.
Again, so this was kind of later on when I was doing this, and I was getting a bit more kind of confident with stuff. I think I was doing probably in the same kind of time period, but I was just like, oh, you know what? It would take me like not very long to do a quick kind of tone pass.
Yep.
And I thought, you know, it would be, and it would add a lot to it. So that's what I started doing with these kind of expressions.
It's cool.
And I didn't actually do this original design, so they just wanted me to kind of elaborate on him.
Yep.
And kind of do a turnaround and then kind of push his character a bit more.
Yep.
So I did these fun character poses for him as well.
Yeah, these are cool.
Yeah, they're really fun. I actually met quite a few of the storyboard artists when I was in Sydney, and they were saying they used these poses quite a lot, so there's a reference.
Yep.
Which is cool.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think I was talking today to some students just about how, like, the concept of doing model sheets as sort of part of, like, it's more sort of production art as opposed to sort of concept art, but just talking about probably there's like an order of magnitude more sort of production style concept art to do on a project than there is kind of that initial,
absolutely.
sort of stuff. And it's like, that's often not the sort of stuff that makes it into the art books. And again, people put on in their folios, but it's important to understand that, in a similar way to what you were doing at Disney or, the first jobs you kind of got is like, often the first jobs you sort of do are more about sort of taking an idea and kind of just producing, stuff, or sort of taking it a bit further, or, like all these expressions need to be done. Someone needs to draw them, like it needs to happen, and, it may just be that the original artist, isn't available, do you know what I mean, for freelance that week or that month, and so they get someone else to do it.
Exactly. And there might be, a long period of time between when that first design is done and when the production actually happens.
Could be years,
It could be years,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but I think it's like there's lots of sort of work out there, like concept artwork, or like, working in the entertainment industry that's not just like, sort of that major key shot or, designing the main character, because it's
absolutely.
just everything needs to be designed, expressions, and it's not like animators just go and sort of make all this stuff up, because they could, but everyone needs to be on the same page about what the character should move like, and that sort of stuff. And it's cheaper. It's always cheaper to pay an artist to go and draw it than it is to pay someone to, animate some different walk cycles and say it should be like this.
Yeah.
So it's
everything
needs to be designed
kind of on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah. That's because it's hard to express how important that is, I think, unless you've been in production and you've been in scenarios where everyone's not on the same page. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like if you do it all well and the production works well, it's kind of like, oh, cool, yeah, everyone's, it all worked, What you don't realize is, like, if you don't do all that concept art and you don't, like, dot all those, I's and cross all the T's and make sure everyone's on the same page, like, stuff, the wheel stuff falling off the production because people are, the character's not on model, everyone's animating it differently, people like approved one design and then the model looks different, and it's like, what happened? Like, that's why people do model sheets, that's why someone will get paid to kind of do maybe unnecessary rendering, or, like going to that nth degree. It's like, why, why does this happen? That there's plenty of reasons why, and there's plenty of work out there doing that sort of thing.
Yeah. When you're dealing with a big team,
yeah,
it is really important. Here's some very rare set design.
It's a Peter Yong set design.
This is Peter Yong set design. So kind of towards the end of my time there, they were like, "Can you draw like a set?" And I'm like, "Yeah, probably." And so they wanted it like. One thing they specified is they wanted all the shots to be kind of a bit Wes Anderson-like. Very kind of symmetrical. These kind of flat kind of compositions. So that's how they wanted the designs done as well.
Sure.
So yeah, and they wanted the characters to look like this, but then the world to be a little bit more realistic.
Yep.
So yeah, I used photos and stuff, which doesn't normally happen with some
Wow.
stuff. But
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, this is apparently a pizza place they go to quite a bit.
Yep.
And
And again,
it's a bit different.
Again, I think that's something that I found often happens is like if you're getting employed by, a company and, they're like, oh, I've got this, maybe it might just be a small job or something. It's like they're talking to you that week, you know what I mean? They've already got you on contract or whatever. It's often easier for them to just say, hey, can you do this?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We'll just extend your contract or whatever, versus finding someone else and seeing whether they're available and telling them about the project and getting them to sign an NDA. So often, you can, I've been asked to do things that probably, other people could do better, to be honest. But, I'm sort of there and, I can do an okay job and they don't have to re-explain the brief. And, we have a working relationship. And, that's often how I've, learned to do new things like that. But that does happen a lot. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. It is so much. Yeah, it is hard to find another person because that's a whole other can of worms that they probably don't like doing.
Yeah, it's time and money. Do you know what I mean? It's
and usually schedules so tight that they're like, can you do it, please?
Yeah, yeah.
This is just some other stuff. This is old The Blob stuff I did. So an old comic that was, I don't think these were used, but they were pretty fun to do. It's part of the loading screens.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They want to try a lineless style, which was quite fun.
Yep.
This brings back memories, Pete.
Yeah, this
is a long time ago.
You guys.
Well, this is a long time. This is like 7 years ago.
It's icons.
And it's icons.
Yep.
So again, can you draw icons?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yes, I can.
I guess I can. So, and these were really fun to do.
Yep.
Really fun to do.
Yep.
And then here's just some random stuff. Me trying out ZBrush, which was really fun.
Yeah, tell us the story of your ZBrush and then working on SpongeBob and how that happened.
Oh, well, so I drew this. I kind of drew this character for. It was a CW class actually when I was teaching down there in 2013.
Yep.
And then when Ben Morrow was down there, we showed the whole class, how he approaches ZBrush.
Yep.
Just with a few simple tools, he was able to create some really impressive stuff. So I kind of got into ZBrush, and after that, and I created this little guy.
Mm-hmm.
The muscly fishman dude, and
yep.
The SpongeBob movie was being made in Melbourne, and a group of those apparently that they saw this right at the beginning of the production. This is one of their reference images that they used before they even started work on the production.
So where would they have found that, do you reckon? Was it?
They would have found it on ZBrush Central. Because I posted on the forum there.
Yep, cool.
Because I have a very small thread on ZBrush Central.
Yeah.
And they troll that all the time. I know one of the guy that I sit next to, he was always on it.
Right.
Looking at people's stuff.
Yep.
So he found this and this was part of their reference folder or in their reference library.
Yep.
And then they were kind of at the end of the production and they needed someone to help with the movie, to sculpt muscles and push the characters, more than the animators could. So I was pretty much sculpting morph targets for the finished film, or for the after the animators were done with the with the animation.
Yep.
So that was a very interesting job. So I worked on that for a month.
Yep.
And I in my interview I told them, I kept telling them I'm not a modeler. I don't know how to do this. And I didn't know how to use Maya. I literally had no idea how to use Maya.
Yep.
I played with it, but I had no idea. And the lead character artist in the interview said, "Oh, I'll teach you on the job." And I was like, you sure about that? He's like, yeah, you'll be fine. And I'm like, okay. And so the first day I was there, he taught me how to use Maya. They showed me their pipeline. I went through HR business that you go through when you go and work in the studio, and I worked on my first shot. So it was a pretty intense day.
Yeah.
I actually finished my first shot as well.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
What the hell? Yeah, I was like, what the hell? But yeah, it was a pretty cool experience. So I was just like sculpting muscles and actually animating the striations of the muscles.
Yep.
As like, you know, as like the character would like lift something up.
Yep.
And stuff like that. I'd animate.
You just
sculpt the striations of the muscles.
So you're just adding that like final few percentage points of detail and sort of exaggeration, which probably couldn't be done with the rig or like the automated sort of.
So it was just giving it that like extra, like, I don't know, 5%.
Yeah.
You know, which kind of made a big difference.
Yep.
So yeah, it was a really kind of interesting job.
Yep.
And they actually asked me, they actually want to employ me again, but I'm like, I can't model. You know, I mean, it's a very technical thing to be like a real proper modeler.
Yep.
You know, you really have to love it. And I really enjoy modeling, but you know, this is kind of the extent. You know, just like sculpting something like a statue or a cool pose.
Well, I think it's a case of where probably like again, you were sort of modeling something that you were super comfortable drawing, rendering, like you understood what that thing was, and probably again that's so similar to what they were after on that movie, on the SpongeBob movie, that you know, it was kind of it all the details don't matter, do you know what I mean? Because it was so much in your wheelhouse that, you know, you were able to kind of handle that side of it so easily, you know what I mean? And it's like, that I think that can often happen, but it's like you can't. I think it's often interesting. It's like you can't plan that. You know what I mean? Like there's no. The moral of the story is just random jobs appear sometimes, and it's very unlikely you'll be able to plan or, you know, like expect them.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's not a normal trajectory. You know, you're not like, I don't know if anyone who would want to become a modeler and never model anything and model one thing.
Yeah, and then work on a feature film.
And then work on a feature
and say in your interview, I'm not a modeler.
And they're still like, it's okay, don't worry about it.
I don't know how to do this job. I'm not a modeler.
Telling them that. I was like,
and they're like, you're hired.
You got the wrong guy. You made a mistake. But no, he was and the lead guy was awesome.
Yeah,
really, really good. And he came from actually quite a traditional background.
Yeah,
he went to Florence, and he studied anatomy over there, and he really knew so much about muscles. Like I thought I knew a bit about muscles, but he like schooled me.
Yep.
Like every day, and it was really cool because like I would sculpt something, and he would like draw. You know, like I'd have a piece of paper next to me. He would like draw the muscles and how they were different to what I'd modeled, and I was like, oh, this is so cool.
Yep. You
know, a really, really impressive team down there. They actually went on to do the Battle of the Bastards, in Game of Thrones. And I'm sure they've done a bunch of stuff in the latest season as well.
Yeah, I think they're doing a whole bunch of Game of Thrones stuff now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just worth like reiterating that point that people who work in companies where they're artists and, you know, they're managing artists are looking on the internet for artists all the time, and they can tell what your skill set is. You know, often people are, I think when people are putting together folios, I think there was a question about, you know, what Pete would think about if you're putting together a concept art folio, but it's like people are often thinking like, how can I trick these art directors and producers and HR people into, you know, thinking I can draw or whatever. And the reality is most people can see in about 5 seconds what you can and can't do from seeing any of your pieces. You know, and it's like, it's just, that's what you sort of gain from spending, you know, 10, 20 years in the industry and having that amount of knowledge, is he can probably see, oh yeah, like Pete understands anatomy. Do you know what I mean? Like click. It's just if you know that much anatomy, someone can look at anything you do. He probably looked at your folio and said, "This guy knows anatomy. He knows how to push it. That's kind of the vibe I want." Everything else is irrelevant because there's not actually maybe that many people who have. I would say, Pete, you're quite rare in your ability to understand realistic anatomy, and also to have like a good sort of sensibility for cartooniness, and also to have that silliness. Do you know what I mean? So it's like there's probably not many people on the planet who actually have your skill set, and if you're an art director or someone looking for that, you see it. It'll be like instantly apparent. It's gonna like jump out of the screen and punch you in the face. Like that's the guy. You know what I mean? It's not something where people have got to think about it or read a CV or whatever. You see it and it's like, bang, that guy can do the job. Because it's obvious. It's not this thing where it's like, oh, I've got a folio or I do this. Do I have to show them life drawing or that I know anatomy? It's like, I can see whether you know anatomy from anything you do. Do you know what I mean? I can see exactly what it is, because if you actually know it, you just kind of put it in everywhere. You know what I mean? It's not...
Exactly. Yeah. It should be like, really from like two pieces of... two drawings, you're like, boom, I know how good that person is. But I thought I might just show some storyboard stuff as well. So last year, probably since mid last year, for about 10 months, I worked on my first TV show, actually storyboarding. I've never done it before.
Yep.
And I worked on The Adventures of Puss in Boots for DreamWorks TV.
Yep.
And that was a really fun show. It was quite intimidating seeing the other boards that were being created from LA, because they were practically animated feature quality boards.
Yep.
But it was for a TV show.
Yep.
But at the same time, it was really exciting. I was like, holy crap, like these boards are hilarious and they've got so much character and life. I think it looked better than the actual finished product of the show. Yep. But it was really, really, really fun show to work on. So I worked on that for 10 months. And it's something I've been wanting to do for a while, because when I went to America both times, I was introduced to storyboarding and I was like, this is cool. Like, this feels like I'm going back to my roots as an animator, and it's kind of the stuff I like in terms of just simple drawing, communicating an idea, and telling a story, and I think that's something I'm beginning to gravitate more than just just design. I'm starting to really enjoy telling a story and storytelling. So that was really cool.
Yep.
Anyway, so this is some storyboards. This is the first storyboards I ever did for the blog again. And it was a really, the blog was quite a small team. It was like 5 people who would create these short films. They were about a minute long short films, and they looked fantastic. And they had to be created in a month from writing, storyboarding to finished product, which is pretty insane. So here's some examples of storyboards that I did. I have to admit that I did go over these and make the drawings nicer for folio purposes. But the drawings are still the same.
Yep.
And if you look on YouTube, I think this one's called Plumber or something like that, you'll be able to see the finished product of this. And because I was a concept artist as well, I was able to design design the environment, design so many objects in the world.
Yep.
So that was really quite a cool experience. I mean, and as a concept artist, you are, especially in small teams like that, you're expected to do, more than one job. I was hired as an environment concept artist. That's what I was actually hired as. But I ended up being this guy, and actually storyboarding was not part of it wasn't even part of the concept artist role at that time. But what was happening was, me and Simon were sitting with the animators. That's where we were, situated. And I was hearing the animators getting really frustrated, with the fact that they had to produce these short films, and they really enjoyed making them, but they just couldn't make them quick enough.
Right.
You know, I think the first cutscene took like 3 months.
Yep.
Which was 3 times the amount it needed to take.
Yep.
And what they were doing was they were actually trying to storyboard in 3D.
Right.
It was just not working. Trying to iterate and tell the story was just not working.
Yep.
And I told my art director, Terry, I said, I think I can storyboard these if you want. And that wasn't part of my schedule, and he was kind of didn't want me to do it. So he said, I want you to storyboard this, this first cutscene this afternoon. So I had 4 hours to do, one of these cutscenes. So I was pretty freaked out, but I did it, and I was able to pitch it to him.
Yep.
And we were able to talk about it. I was able to talk to the animators, and we were able to come up with these really, iterate on these cutscenes very quickly, and it was a great experience. And Terry, who Simon's had to teach as well at CDW, he's a fantastic artist. And he saw what I was doing, and he was like, that looks like a lot of fun. So he even storyboarded some of the cutscenes as well. So that was really cool. Yeah, really, that was such a great experience.
Yep.
Again. So this is something. So I've actually been working for probably 4 years for a studio in Sydney called Mighty Nice, and they do really nice quality animated advertisements.
Yep.
So this is just one I really like because it kind of represents the finished product really clearly. So I hope I'm not going too fast.
No, you're good.
But this is the kind of, the amount of drawings that you need to do. And I think this is 15 seconds.
Yep.
But and it's usually maybe 2 days to do this.
Yep.
And that's including, I think there was about 5 versions of this.
Yep.
That had to be done.
Yep.
And I'll see if this plays. It's only 30 seconds. Hopefully this plays okay in Skype.
There's so many layers of interpretation going on with this film. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 15 seconds. So yeah, it's kind of cool how
it's cool.
Similar to the storyboards it is.
Yep. Yeah, cool.
It's awesome.
They do fantastic work. Yeah. Really cool. And this was something I did in just quickly. This was like a storyboard I did when I was teaching down at CDW.
Yep.
And it was like a little action scene. And it was something I wanted to do that was a little bit further away from cartoony stuff.
Yep.
Something I don't know, kind of high pace and
Yep. Like a bit more serious?
A bit more serious? Yeah.
Yep.
It was really fun. It was, I just kind of designed these kind of, what would you call them, flying biker pirate dudes, who were chasing this, bird boy.
Yep.
And then just create this little story around it, them chasing him and capturing him, and
yep.
They're after this box that you don't know.
Yep.
You don't know what it is. And then it's revealed it's like a bird egg at the end. So, that was cool. And I think that actually, because this is something I've had online for a while. And I think this is a big reason why I got, some of the storyboard work that I've had.
Yep.
Especially Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots is a very cinematic show.
Yep.
And
yeah.
And that's kind of what they were looking for.
Yeah.
So I think that's why he put me onto that show.
Yeah.
And it was quite intimidating because I was the only person in the studio in Sydney working on that show.
Right.
And it was like, just do this. If you don't do it, then I guess we'll get kicked off the show.
Yep.
And I actually worked on 2 episodes, and they said, "Oh, congratulations, you've been accepted on the show." I'm like, "But what?" So they were like, being tested.
Right.
They were testing me, which I guess actually happens a lot. I think I pretty much every job I take, I'm like, yeah, I'm being tested right now, to see if I can do it.
Yep.
But I'm getting kind of used to it now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's probably about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's talking about the discussion topic that we were going to sort of go on, which I think has got to do with sort of like it's to do with sort of improving. You know what I mean? I think it's really interesting that, for instance, you have that flight storyboard that you sort of did, and again, I feel like that's something you kind of had wanted to storyboard, and you were sort of doing that a bit sort of on your own. And it's also, I feel like, you were exploring a lot of sort of things that you sort of hadn't done before, like the flying, sort of creatures and cars and things like that. That was, sort of, I feel like, was that some of the first time you'd sort of started to do that? Or you'd gone to CDA in America to learn, and probably you'd taken a lot of concept art sort of courses, and everyone's drawing like gear and mech and that sort of stuff. And so you're kind of combining that into there, and you put it online, and then, probably, I don't know, 3 years later or something, someone sees it, and then you finally get the job in storyboarding. It's I feel like most of the stories you're telling about getting jobs and things are very sort of organic. You know what I mean? It's like you're doing one thing, and then years later, it's kind of like, bam, this kind of thing appears.
Yeah, leading to something else.
But there's a very consistent, I think, with all the stuff you're doing, where you were kind of often with personal work and just here and there, you're just kind of exploring random new things. You know what I mean? Which I think is fairly unique. If you look at work and just here and there. Yeah, sorry, we had some feedback. Yeah. So it's just interesting because I feel like you are someone who just has a crack. I feel like it's like different things. You're often playing around with ZBrush or other 3D things. You see someone like, oh, someone's drawing a mech or something technical that's maybe not something you've done before, but you just kind of like do it and sort of play around with it and then put it up online. And I think that's really important, to just be playful. Do you know what I mean? And just sort of try things out.
And I think that there's a lot of pressure on people to like specialize in things.
Yep.
And I've always approached things where everything feeds into everything else. So there's no harm if you try drawing robots if that's not your thing.
Yeah.
In fact, if you try it and kind of get through those first pains of sucking and frustration that will probably happen.
Yep.
You'll find that when you go back to drawing characters, you'll be even better at drawing that thing.
Yep.
And so it all just, and even when I was sculpting, my drawing improved so much.
Yep.
And my like anatomy knowledge improved so much because I was so used to drawing the body and certain body parts in the same kind of position or the same angle.
Yep.
And when you're sculpting something, you've got to take into account every angle. And so what happened when I was doing that sculpture, I was like, oh my god, like I've exhausted my knowledge.
Yep.
And so I had to do a whole bunch of research.
Yep.
Make a whole new reference sheet and kind of fill those holes up. And then when I started drawing again, I was like, oh my god, I've learned so much.
Yep. Yeah.
And again, it's like, I haven't drawn that many environments, but I've always felt that doing environments has helped my characters.
Yeah.
And I know if I was a better painter, and better at doing these kind of things, it would just help everything.
Yep.
But it's still something, even to this day, I really struggle with.
Yep.
Getting into.
Yep. Well, I think it's often people worry about, like, if they are sort of, I think it's like people are, developing, and they're sort of like worrying about, should I focus, you know what I mean? And I think it's probably, I feel like it's probably a case where, maybe it's not fair to say to people, just try a whole bunch of stuff and become a jack of all trades, because probably, Pete, you have like a core competency that you've sort of used to kind of get work throughout the time. But I think it does show that I think you've done pretty well by just doing random things, you know what I mean, and just kind of not with any sort of like I'm going to do this so that I can do that, and finally in 3 years I'll do that. You just kind of like going with it, and then the universe does, I think, respond to that. Do you know what I mean? Or it sort of can, again, there's no guarantee for that sort of thing, but it is really interesting that you kind of hear that, and it's like, that seems to be the theme, is that, you are just kind of, reaping the benefit for trying some random thing. And I think people should do that more, you know what I mean? The more you can do that, the more you sort of opening up different things. And I think also like getting closer to figuring out what you actually want to do. Do you know what I mean? Like you kind of are chipping away at that thing. So like, oh, I actually like doing this, or I like doing that.
Yeah. I also wonder if it's a thing of like, maybe I get bored doing the same thing all the time.
Sure. Yep.
So sometimes I'm just like, I probably see like, seeing like Darren Quatch's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked at his sketchbook and just been like, oh my god, I just want to draw next. And I think a lot of people kind of get that feeling.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
and
so
and
I
you
think
did
a bit of that as well. Like it didn't seem like a real conscious like.
Do you want to? Can you just expand your screen, Pete? Just want to stop screen sharing just while we're chatting.
Yep.
Sorry,
we can see Giant Pete.
Yeah. Let's do this.
How do I do it? Oh, there was a stop screen sharing button. Oh, here it is. Boom.
Boom.
There I am.
Yep. There you are. Yeah. So what?
Yeah, it was more of just I feel like doing this.
Yep.
So I'm going to do it. It wasn't a real like conscious decision.
Yep.
But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm like, that actually has a lot of benefit.
Yep.
And I feel like, I think that came from like life drawing a little bit. Like when I was at uni, I did life drawing like heavily. Like I just really loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to. My third year, I was attending every year's life drawing class. I was like, I wasn't quite sneaking into the class, but I was like, if the first year's had a class, I just attend that.
Yeah.
I asked my teacher, I was like, can I just attend this class? And I started skipping out on my art theory lessons.
Yep.
But that's because I knew that I could just do my assignments and then pass.
Yeah.
And my priority was getting better at drawing because I knew I wanted to apply at Disney.
Right.
And Disney they look at life drawing. They don't look at cartoons. In fact, the application form, the folio was just your drawings from life.
Right.
So yeah, and when I did that, I was like, I stressed a lot about my drawing back then.
Yep.
And I got to a point. I had a really strict teacher as well, a teacher who would rip your drawings off the easel.
Yep.
You weren't doing what the exercise that she was telling you to do. She would cross out your drawing, with charcoal. But she was an awesome teacher. Like she really, really was really good. Very encouraging. And there was a reason why she was doing that, because she was all that, I'm teaching you this because I want you to have a go at it. I want you to get out of your comfort zone.
Yep.
And then what happened was I just started stop caring about the drawing itself.
Yep.
But caring more about like, what am I going to learn from this today?
Yep.
And that was a huge revelation for me at uni. And I was like, I started having fun as well.
Yep.
Because I stopped getting so like hung up on the drawing, but I'm like, I'm just going to focus on gesture today and do the best I can at that and just have fun. And because having fun is what drawings and art's all about. It really is, even to this day. If I'm not having fun, geez, I mean, like seriously, if you're not having fun doing this as a job, you got problems because you're going to do this a lot. Like, it's like storyboarding. You're expected to draw, 100 drawings a day sometimes. So if you're in agony or drawing 100 drawings a day, you got problems. And even Kevin Chen said that as well. He said, "I hope you enjoy drawing because you're going to do a lot of this. You're going to make this your career."
Yep.
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
Well, yeah, like the question is very much about, like, because we have a discussion topic, each sort of week, and I think the discussion topic is pretty close to this. I feel like is sort of just about, like, if a student is studying, at CDW or somewhere else or wherever, like what can you do to kind of fine tune or get the most out of your time, I guess, to make sure that you're in the best position you can be. What do you think about that? Do you know what I mean? Because I think that your opinion on this is kind of, I would say, is fairly unique. Because I feel like, Pete, you put a lot of emphasis on enjoying the drawing. You know what I mean? I've heard you talk about that a lot. You know what I mean? And I think that's really key. It's maybe not something that a lot of people are putting a priority on.
Yeah. Well, I've thought about this a bit, and sometimes I think it's not just drawing, but it's creating something.
Yeah.
It's being in a creative space. Like when I was young, like I just want to be in a studio and being around creative people.
Yep.
And that's what I want. I want to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my focus then. And even when I was modeling, I was like, that was still really fun, But I know long term I want to pursue drawing. That's really where it's at for me. Because yeah. But what was your question again? I think I got a bit lost.
No. Well, it's just like if students are studying, right? I think often they're just kind of like, people are sort of worrying or just sort of thinking like, how do I maximize my time? Do you know what I mean? So that I can get the maximum effect out of my sort of 3 years or 4 years of sort of learning. Because I think often it's like, I think your stories are kind of interesting in that way, because it's not this kind of sort of thing where there's some logical sort of sort of progression, but I think it is something that you think about a lot. You know what I mean? Like how to improve and how to get better and stuff.
Well, I mean, when I was at uni, I mean, again, it's a bit different situation. With probably a lot of the students there, but when I was at uni, I wanted that job at Disney.
Yeah.
And I knew what I needed to do to get that job.
Right. So you had like a solid outcome.
Yeah. So, and even I had a lecturer there who worked down there, and he'd got a job down there, and there were a couple of ex-students who had got jobs there. And they were like life drawing, draw from life.
Yep.
So that was my kind of goal.
Yep.
And I felt like I knew that once I got a job, probably my parents would probably breathe a sigh of relief, but also, I knew I'd be in a place where I can learn more again.
Yep.
Continue to learn.
Yeah.
And that was really important. And I don't know. I just, if you can have like maybe little goals like that. I mean, it is tricky with concept art because it's so broad.
Yeah.
And it's there's just so many facets of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. Well, I mean,
but,
you go.
Even if you like have a look at like the studios around or overseas or anything and say, what's the most common job in a game studio? And maybe go, well, maybe I'll do this kind of concept art stuff, but then I'll have like this additional skill which will make me more employable.
Right.
And then see what happens.
Like what kind of skill would you think?
I don't know, like modeling.
Right.
Like I'm sure there'll always be a demand for people who model props and stuff like that.
Right.
And the thing is, I've been kind of so out of the games industry like that for so long.
Yeah. Well, I guess it doesn't have to necessarily be like about sort of getting a job as a concept artist, but just, like I feel like a lot of the things you're talking about are just about making sure you're enjoying doing it. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and I think it's probably you're talking about the fact that when you were studying, the studio or like the school was sort of saying, we've got theory and life drawing and whatever, and you were just sort of, no, I'm going to prioritize life drawing, even though people are probably like, no, you're a dummy, like you'll get a bad mark or whatever, but you kind of knew that's what you wanted to do, and it was maybe more fun for you or whatever. Like, yeah, I think that's important.
Funny that year I got the best mark I ever got.
Right. Yeah.
Because I figured out, because I have back in, I don't know if they still do this at uni, but they had a criteria. Would have the assignment brief.
Yep.
And they would have like a criteria of like what you should touch on in this.
Right. And so you just told them what they wanted to hear.
Address all those points.
Yep.
Hand in and never return to the class.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think that just talks about. I think often if you have a goal, I think it's very easy to be clear. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing where like, a lot of the nonsense kind of disappears. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about drawing fast. When it is like, if I don't draw, 100 drawings a day, I don't eat. You kind of, all the nonsense and all the bullshit just kind of like disappears into the background. You have that sort of clarity of like, I need to draw real fast right now. And if I'm like, oh, but I'm not feeling like it, or I don't think, I'm not, my pencil, maybe I need a different pencil. It's like, no. You need to draw right now, real quick. And I think it's often surprising how much like clarity of purpose really kind of makes you, it rids you of neurosis, I guess, which is like worrying about worrying. And I think that's sort of super important, I think, for students to sort of to get to, is just like, like a lot of answers and a lot of things happen when you kind of just get desperate, but it's hard to make yourself desperate when you're not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's not pleasurable.
Yeah.
Sure.
When I was teaching, I wouldn't like to put students in that situation. I feel terrible.
Yeah. Well, I think it is. I think often teachers try to, and I think to a certain degree, I mean, you can try, but there is really no way to replicate that feeling. And I think it's, you can sort of pretend, oh, we're going to be really harsh, but it's a different sort of feeling. You know what I mean? Like, to sort of.
Also, what happens is once you get to the other side of that, and you have accomplished that.
Yep.
Your confidence increases. You're like, oh my god, I actually can do that.
Yep.
And and you're like, wow, I never thought I could do that, and that wasn't so bad.
Yep.
And
and
it was, I guess it's like I mean that's what happens when you start working. I'm sure you found that with your comic team. You're like, how am I going to get this ridiculously epic 100 plus page comic done?
Yep.
And you do it, and you're like, whoa.
Yep.
I did that.
Yes.
And it's a big confidence booster,
Yeah. No, I think so. Yeah. But I think, there's definitely, I mean, I guess it's just a matter of, I think that one of the things I see people trip up over being students now is, I feel like probably to a certain degree, when like we were going to school, it's kind of, we sort of had to ignore the teachers to a certain degree, right? And I feel like the people who probably made it were the ones who said, no, screw theory, screw that, this is what I actually need to do to get a job, Whereas I feel like the difference is in CDW, it's like, I feel like what people need to do a bit more is just like relax and say, CDW or most of these, like, like a good modern art education that's based on fundamentals will give you the foundation. You know what I mean? And
you're breaking up a little bit, Tim.
Am I breaking up?
Yeah.
I can hear it. We can hear some background noise there.
Is that better, Pete?
Kind of there, yeah.
Is that better?
Oh, now Simon's gone.
Okay.
Oh, now you're back. Maybe it's a Skype thing.
It could be a Skype thing.
Oh yeah, you're back now.
Okay.
Yep, sorry.
Cool. So what were you saying, Tim?
What was I saying? Oh, so I think like one of the things is like often what I say to students is that I think the number one thing you need to do now is figure out how to enjoy doing what you're doing and really get passionate about it. Because to a certain degree, if you kind of do boot camp stuff at CDW, or at like sort of schools in the US, they're kind of teaching you that basic stuff. You know what I mean? If you sort of do it, a lot of that stuff is fairly mechanical. I think what people are often missing is they're kind of getting a bit too obsessed with that stuff, and they're not finding the passion, and they're not really figuring out like, what do I actually want to do? You know what I mean? And they're sort of like, oh, I want to do everything, and it's like, yeah, no, you can do everything. It's really tough, but I feel like figuring that out, or trying to get as close to that as possible, I think is probably a goal that everyone should aspire to. Because again, once you have that clarity of like, oh my god, I figured out this is actually what I want to do, or something that I can actually commit myself to and feel good about, not like, oh, maybe I don't want to do this. I think then everything kind of clarifies. You know what I mean? And I feel like
and I think something to get across to students is to don't be afraid to take your time. Like, I think a lot of students want to rush and be good like right now.
Yep.
And a thing that I used to do in my class was, and I think you guys probably do this right now, is, have a look at what you got, what the student was doing before my class and then at the end, and it's like, look at how much improvement that is.
Yep.
And if you're improving, then it's all good.
Yep.
Just, you don't need to, and like some of the students, they're insane. They're doing such good work.
Yep.
And when I see some of them like stressing out, I'm like, you're fine, man.
Tim and I were actually having this conversation at lunchtime, and just kind of like what some of the guys are doing at 21 and 22 is like just so far above like what we were doing. Right? And you're just like, and even this question popped up from a student that's has improved so much in less than a year. Right, and they're kind of still like, what do I need to do? It's like, just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is realizing that it is a bit of a marathon, right? Like more than, and I've heard people say like, oh, things are sort of sprints or marathons, or like sprints are better because you don't want to burn too much. You don't want to get into this constant thing where you burn out. You know what I mean? But the reality is you have to kind of track your progress over time and really sort of just say, because you're going to plateau. You're going to kind of like figure out how to do a thing, and then you're going to lose that feeling of like constant improvement, which I think is so motivating, especially when people aren't at that point where they can kind of create the images that are in their head. You know what I mean? I feel like there's that point where it's like you can or you can't kind of come up with an idea and execute on it. And I think when you can't, the thing that kind of lets you get up in the morning, you know what I mean, and kind of keep slogging away is the feeling that you're improving. And that plateaus. Sometimes you're like, I did it, and then it's like, what next? And you kind of flail around for a few months, even not really getting much better. But then you kind of find some, you tap another little gold vein, and kind of go for a bit more. And I feel like it's understanding that is more the process. It's not like consistent, but you need to look at it as like over time it's consistent. You know what I mean? And I think as long as you're consistently getting better, I think you have to trust that like it's not just finding one thing and doing it again. I talk a lot about this in like Create 101, right? Like the initial thing we teach the first years is just that one of the problems I think you'll find, and Pete, maybe you can comment on this, about the fact that like you want to do a job, right? And then you start doing it, and the act of doing it kind of makes it not as fun anymore, because I feel like artists are always wanting the next thing. They want something that is a challenge, right? We want something that's new and fresh. And like, people don't believe this, but if you're having to draw the same thing again and again and again and again and again, like, trust me, it's a fucking job. You know what I mean? It's not fun, right? It's just, you're just drawing, right? What's fun is kind of like pushing your skill set. I think like that's really probably what motivates most artists. And the problem is you kind of get paid the most money for doing stuff that you can already do really well. So you kind of constantly have to be pushing yourself to not get jaded. You know what I mean? And there's plenty of artists who are really good, but they're not enjoying their work anymore because they're really good at it, and they've been good at it, and they're not sort of pushing themselves anymore. So I think it is your job as a student, as a 20-year veteran, is the same. It's to kind of find that next thing that's going to push your skill set and manage that, and manage the plateaus, and manage the downs, and manage when, like, you can't sleep because you're like, oh my god, color theory, or something is like, that's it. That's the game, right? Is constantly managing that. Because I also think, one of the things I always talk about Jamie Jones, who, the great painter Jamie Jones came and said, is that I felt finding a lot of process stuff is I'd always want a really reliable process. Do you know what I mean? I'd sort of want this thing, and I'd hear these people talking about, oh, I don't really like the painting, because once I do the thumbnail, then it's all kind of downhill, and I know what to do, and it's just kind of noodling and rendering. And Jamie was specifically like, no, you should never, ever be complacent. You should always be engaged with the painting. You should always be saying, like, I care, every stroke matters, you know what I mean? And that should be how you do it, because then the painting's alive and you're alive and you feel good. And I think that stuff, that thing, right, of like constantly being excited and constantly being engaged is tricky, because it's elusive. You know what I mean? You find this thing, I want to story, like, I'm sure, you were like, I want to storyboard on a major, thing, and like, you've done it and you're doing it. And now it's kind of like, what's next? You know what I mean? Like, you can do it and you still enjoy it, but there's that thing where it's going to be like, okay, what's next? You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely, always.
Yeah, and it's I think that students imagine that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? That people who are working on,
I think sometimes they imagine there's this point where where you're like, I've mastered it. Nothing more to do, sort of thing. Like, you're always like, doesn't matter how, like, even the best painters are probably challenging themselves just as much as anyone else, right?
And I think there's a point of where you become comfortable on that phase. Do you know what I mean? Where you're kind of like, you're finding where, if you get a bit stressed and it's too much, you can kind of pull back into your comfort zone a bit, wait till it gets boring, sort of push yourself. And I feel like just noticing how you feel, whether you are enjoying it, I think is super important. Because I think a lot of students are burning out, basically. And I think, like, the number one thing you should do is make sure you don't burn out, because then it's like a marathon. If you burn out, you don't win the race. You know what I mean? It's like hare and tortoise kind of thing, to a certain degree.
And sometimes the best thing is to just take a break. That's the best thing you can do.
Yep.
Is just take a break. And don't draw for a bit.
Yeah.
Don't draw at all.
Yep. For how long?
Back into it and find what you enjoy about it again.
Yep. Yeah. No. Totally. Yep.
Yeah, and I think like one of the biggest things is that finding the style, finding what it is that you want to do, finding what it is that you're excited about doing, sometimes takes a lot of time to work out what that is. It does. And that's part of the journey, right? Like,
and it can, you might find something that's really inspiring you for like 5 years. You know what I mean? You may wake up one day and be like, you know what, I'm sick of this. You know what I mean? And you might have, people who often got kids and responsibilities and houses and things like that, and I think that's when it becomes a problem. But I think it's always going to be an issue, right? Like, figuring out, just be aware that I often say this to artists as well, because people they're anxious because they're like, essentially I describe it as, people are like, I have feelings about art and I have intense emotions about the art that I'm creating, and it's very stressful. And I'm like, that's good, because art is about you creating emotional stuff. And if you're not emotionally engaged with what you're doing, if you don't care, if you're not worried that if this thing isn't going to turn out well and people aren't going to, feel the same things that you're feeling, like, you're not going to do good art. You know what I mean? That's what makes good art. Like, why do people think that you should just be able to sit there as, some like, sort of like Vulcan mind, like, do you know what I mean? Completely passionless, and be like, I'm just going to create the perfect art. Like, that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? You're just
and I think that feeling also leads to the sense of, like, fear or failure and all those things, right? Like, so it's all a big combination.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think it's just managing that is really important. And I think you should pay attention to that, and also pay attention to that when you're a student. Because if you can fine tune that where you can fail, you know what I mean? And you can sort of say, what happens if I just do this? What happens if I ignore this feeling? Or what happens if I just do what I feel like, or whatever? Like, you'll find out. You may crash and burn. You may spend 6 months not improving, but at least you kind of get a feel for how your emotional state is relating to you getting better, essentially. And it's
also, I feel like, and maybe this is something you learn over experience as well, but when you're doing a job, you also you learn to disconnect from it a bit.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, you say, this is a job. I'm a professional.
Yep.
This isn't my work. This doesn't represent me.
Yep.
I'm doing work for a client. I'm going to do the best job I can for them because that's what I'm here for.
Yep.
This job isn't about me. We're a team, and I'm working with the director to make the best thing possible, and finding enjoyment in that, I think, is important too.
I think that's super important. Yeah.
And I think one thing that I find that maybe is a thing about me as well is I think I'm okay to work with, and I think that's one thing that's kept me employable, and I think that is super duper important.
Yep.
I've never burnt any bridges. I've never caused drama.
Yep.
And I when I left my job in Sydney, I was a bit freaked out because I was like, how am I going to get, I'm leaving a secure job, I knew it was secure, but I'm like, well, I got to do it. But I was surprised, like, I just got so much work. And I didn't have to look for it. It just came, from a lot of people who I've worked with before, a lot of people who referred me.
Yep.
And I think that's really important. Actually, in 2 weeks, I'm going to work with the guys in Sydney again.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's but that's something you will learn. I mean, I was very attached to my work when I was younger. When I first started working,
yes,
I was like, this is me.
And I think that's very common.
And I did have a kind of a bad experience in a bad team.
Yeah.
With a project that went nowhere, and it really I just invested too much in it. And I got really upset about how things turned out. But then I was like, why get upset? It was out of my control. There was no reason to get upset about that kind of stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I found, and I mean, one of the reasons why in Create 101 at CDW, I make the homework now is just people do whatever art they want. There's no assignment. It's like just total free form. You just make a picture every week, is because like I found, for instance, like when I was like a budding artist trying to get into comics, I'd be working with writers, and a lot of these writers initially were kind of amateur writers, but I'd kind of be like, I could write this better, you know what I mean? Because I originally started not as an artist. Like I read fantasy books and I wanted to be a writer, and that's something I've always been interested in. And I was just a total dick. I was a total jerk to work with. I know, and at the time I was like, I know this is not good, but I was just like, I could do this better, And I tried doing it, and it's hard, and I did it, and I feel like I sort of got that off my chest, and that allowed me to sort of collaborate a lot better. Do you know what I mean? I feel like there's things you can learn about collaboration, but I also think it's really important for people to do their own work, in their own time, because I think that does allow you to collaborate with other people. Certainly for me, that works. Is it sort of means that I can just fully commit to the project and say like, no, I don't care. Like but you can't say I don't care. You've got to be like, no, I care 100%. It's like improv. But then when it stops, it stops. You know what I mean? And you've got to kind of really commit to that vision that's there and try and serve it as best you can. And I found, that doing my own work, like, really kind of doing my own projects helped me sort of get that chip off my shoulder. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I feel like I'm
and I'm exactly the same. I mean, that's why I need to make my comic.
Yep.
I had to.
You had to, because you're like, otherwise you would make you're like, this thing needs more giant people who eat things and get in fights. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like, it's like, I've been working for so long. It's like, what have I got to show for all this time? I've got all this stuff that I've worked on.
Yep.
But does it really say like what I'm about?
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess the flight thing, that's kind of cool. That's kind of me, and some of the storyboards I've done and the sculpture I've done, that's me. But it's just a piece of artwork.
Yeah.
Whereas that comic was like a story.
It's a
It was
thing.
a world.
You can hand it to someone and be like, "This is me.
Yeah.
I tried. I have no
something
excuses.
I made.
This is 100% me."
I know, and that's. I mean, and whatever they think, I don't really care.
Yep.
But that's it. That's like.
Yeah.
It's something I've made that is mine, 100%.
Yeah.
Which is really quite cool.
Yep. Yeah.
No, it's nothing to do about like. I wasn't intending for it to make money. It was just pure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pure, like I feel like an artist now.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Yep.
It represents something.
Yep. Well, no, totally. I think that's like a very, very good point that I feel probably like your attitude has helped you get the work, do you know what I mean? And kind of like stay employed despite having like, doing so many different things. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably something that I feel like students could work towards as well, is like figuring out how much energy and how to kind of really commit to the projects and the homework assignments that sort of people are given. Because I feel like often people can get really, like negative reactions because it's like, oh, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to do that. And
it's not my thing.
Yeah, it's not my thing, or like, I don't really care about this. We're doing this thing and I'm doing it, but I don't really care, because that's, it's just something, it's a reason for you not to care. Do you know what I mean? And not to do a good job.
I think an important thing is, if you feel that, it's like, how can I apply whatever this thing is that's out of my comfort zone into what I like to do?
Yeah.
I think that's another way of
totally
thinking about it.
You have to.
Once you start thinking like that, you're like, oh, you start. Enjoying. Because all these exercises that you guys are doing, they're for a reason. You're not just like, you're not doing stupid exercises to fill in a quota of some.
Yeah. No, there's thought behind them.
Stuff,
Yep. Yeah.
So you'll learn. No matter what.
Yep.
As long as you do it and give it a go.
Yeah, but I also think there's like, it's really important to state just how important that concept is linked to the idea of creativity, where I think when you are in that, and you were talking about, being in that creative mindset, where I think the creative mindset is much less about having objections to things. It's like, they talk about collaboration being like a yes process, to the point where like our natural inclination is maybe to be adversarial and argue with people and say like, oh yeah, that's, no, I have an idea that's slightly better. Whereas, and people do this in boardrooms, where I think probably people in offices who have normal jobs, I don't know, I've never had a normal job, but I imagine people sit around in suits in normal offices and do things, and I don't know, and they kind of have to say, let's have a brainstorm session where, we kind of make sure no one can say no and you can only say yes. And so you're forced into a situation where you can't be like, oh, that's a shit idea, let's do this other idea. You kind of have to say, that's a great idea, and this also is a good idea. We've all got good ideas, and I think that there's a point at which you allow that to happen. You allow that process to kind of take over, where you actually get ideas that normally, like, I feel like are in your subconscious, but your conscious mind is like not actually letting you say. And that's why they do that. That's why they do brainstorming sessions, is because people are actually afraid of saying things because they're worried that someone's going to be like, that's a dumb idea, like that's stupid. And they're like, oh, I knew it was a stupid idea. Whereas when you just let yourself be like, well, that's what the project is, I'll just do that. You kind of like, often you come up with really exciting, interesting things that I would never have thought of doing that, and I'm like, I'll look back on a project and I'll be like, wow, I did that. That's really weird. I never would have thought to do that, but that's super exciting. And that's sort of good for me. Now I kind of go onto projects and I'm like, let's see what happens. I don't know, I don't know what will happen. I'll just like, let's just collaborate, Yeah.
And it's not about being, adversarial. It's about collaborating more than
yeah.
That. And I think that's something that I learned, when I was younger, I didn't think like that maybe as much as I could have.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's got to be this way. And then I get, you stress about things that don't really matter.
Yeah. It's just letting go and saying like, well, let's just see what happens, And I think often the artistic process is about that. It's about seeing like, which are the happy accidents I'm going to move forward with, which are the ones I'm going to ignore. And I feel like often people can get very frustrated with art by thinking that it is this kind of linear progress thing where you're like, I have this idea, I'm going to do a storyboard, and then, it's going to be exactly like I imagined. And it's like, Probably not. Probably some of the best
Sure.
art that's ever been created is just being created in that mindset where
Yeah.
you're kind of just letting things sort of flow. And I think that can help your mindset. It can help that attitude of you enjoying it. And I think it also can help your ability to get paid and do a job and sort of make sure everyone, you don't get a bad name. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I know so many people who have just burnt bridges and that's it.
That's it.
It's like,
Computer through a
They
window.
wonder why they can't get employed again.
Yeah.
I'm like, because you're a pest.
Yeah.
and it is a fact of life that if you're not that great, but you can do the job and you're a pleasure to be around,
Yep.
you'll get hired 100 times more than someone who's amazing,
Yep.
but they're a dick and they're just a pain in the butt.
Yep.
That's just a fact of life. I would much prefer to be around someone who is just awesome to be around and can do the job, as opposed to someone who's just a gun. Could probably do like 4 people's jobs.
Yep.
They're just a fucking pain in the ass.
Yep.
And you just see it all the time. I don't know. Like I work with guys who I'm just like, you're an animal. You are so good, but they're just dicks. And, like I know a guy who's just one of the most amazing artists I've ever met. He made a comic when he was a teenager, like a graphic novel, and it was insane. I don't know where the hell he came from. But yeah, he was a real pain in the ass. And he just completely, he can't work in Australia anymore. Everyone knows him in the games industry, and he can't work anywhere here.
Yep.
Because he just caused such shit.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't be that person.
No.
All right. So with that, let's take a little break.
Yep.
And then and we're going to come back with some demos for you guys, all right? And do some fun stuff. So all right. So let's take a break and we'll be right back. All right, guys. So we're back here, and we're gonna have this epic art battle off. We've decided that the theme is fantasy minotaur. So Pete and Tim are both gonna do fantasy minotaur. They got about 30 minutes, so it better be good, guys. And
oh man, Tim's got that demoing practice.
So actually, before we go too much further, do you want to share your screen, Pete? And then we can kind of flick between the two.
Yep.
Yeah. Don't get too excited.
I'm excited.
Do you have a way for me to work and for him to share his screen?
Maybe. Let's see what's going to happen.
Does it work?
Hang on. Just go down to Skype. Okay.
Does that work?
Just go back to Photoshop. No, but we'll just switch back. So
it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No, it does work. Yeah, it does work. Sorry.
Well, you can probably if Pete shares his screen, will it come up there?
No, it's not. No, it's like that's what I was hoping, but it's not. That's okay.
Oh, okay.
We'll just
like
at 10 minute intervals we can just switch back. Yeah. So yeah, it's working, Pete. So you go for it, and Tim, you go for it.
Do you want to have it on? Do you want to have the Skype call on your screen so you can see what Pete's doing?
Sure. Okay, that's maybe a good idea. Sorry, guys. Oh, look at this. Pete's
Pete.
going.
Oh. See, Pete's quite fast. He's quite fast.
I'm just doodling around and doing a little quick thumbnail.
Whoa. Hang on. There's two people driving the same computer.
This is why you need multiple computer streams going everywhere. All right.
So we've got to get some sort of setup where we can have like two computers feeding in separately. We're going to work on this, guys. We're going to get it happening. We will get this happening.
Yep.
So at the moment, Tim, Pete is currently kicking your butt, and he has a minotaur on the screen already, which is looking good. And Tim's just got a fancy background.
I'm reusing a file for the background, so I don't have to draw it again. Which is this is how I'm going to win by cheating. All right.
So the theme is fantasy minotaur.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna talk shit to these guys while they're drawing, so they can just focus on drawing, hopefully.
Yeah,
and I'll try.
You can see what Pete.
I'll try and put them off as much as possible.
Yep. Well, every now and then you can drag Pete's to the screen.
Hang on. Let's just hang on one more second, Tim. I'm just gonna move this just so I can see, because I can't see the chat anymore.
Oh yeah.
And then so if you guys,
is there any questions?
So if you guys have got any questions, just please let us know, because I can answer questions while these guys are drawing. So, and basically at the moment Pete's just blocking in like a little thumbnail and stuff. He's just working on his little fantasy guy, and I think this is gonna be hard for Tim, because Tim can see what Pete's doing. You got focus, Tim.
Well, focus. I don't have any ref. That's the real problem.
You got to look at Pete's for the ref of what the minute.
Yeah, that's right. What does the ball look like?
Yeah. Do you want to find something quickly and like just put it in your file?
Oh, I had that might be an idea actually. I had a couple of things over on this other screen, so I'll just drag them. Oh, come on, internet. We're doing competition. I find it funny that most people have
I think it's just not that image is not
no, there. It's not. Yeah, I find it interesting that like lots of people are doing bulls or minotaurs, and they're not making the body human. And I'm
yes.
No, I'm pretty sure that the body has to be human, right? That's your understanding, Pete.
I think so, or mostly human.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just trying to. That's okay. I'm fast at drawing. This will be alright.
Tim's friggin' fast. I don't know what you're talking about. You're a beast, Bryce.
Not storyboarding fast.
That's cool. They're some cool horns, though.
Mm-hmm.
cool stream. Pete's on one screen, and we can't even see what he's doing.
Yep.
And
oh no, and I'm
me
getting.
and Tim are looking at.
Well, mostly we're looking at
bull
101 era
going on?
things. I just need a picture of a bull. How hard is this, internet?
Just copy. Can you just copy that and paste it? Like just right click.
Ooh. It's a thumbnail. It'll do.
It's better than nothing.
Well,
Just
kind of. How's Pete going? Do you want to? Cool. Well, Pete's drawn his whole ball by now, and I'm still.
So apparently we are getting a little bit of lag with the stream as well. So we're hoping. Let's hope that it's going to sort itself out kind of soon.
We can always reset.
Yeah, can you let us know in the chat, guys? Is it being really laggy, or is it sort of okay? Might also be because we've been dragging screens around and moving stuff around the place. So what's so Pete, what are you thinking about? Like, what's your kind of thought process in terms of like doing something like this really quick? Like, what are you kind of?
Well,
what are you thinking about?
I just had a quick idea. I mean, I don't have much time to think about it, but I'm like, well, what's my main? What are the two things I want to combine? Obviously, it's a miniature, so it's a bull, and I just my main reference in terms of like its like costume would be a gladiator.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of yes, I mean it's pretty like generic, but that's what I'm thinking about in terms of just his type of armor. So nothing too different. Also, in terms of body type, I'm kind of looking at powerlifters.
Always.
Always. Yes, it's sort of like bodybuilders. Because
you don't even need to find reference for that stuff, Pete.
Oh, I have a little bit. No, actually, no, I don't. Actually, no, I do. I have a tab here that has powerlifters on it.
No, I know you're just looking on your wall there, aren't you? On your office wall, you've just got it stuck up on the wall.
I've also got a mirror here. I just pull my shirt up every now and then.
Yeah.
So instead of bodybuilders, who bodybuilders have built their bodies for aesthetics, whereas powerlifters have built their bodies to be powerful and serve a function.
I too am drawing a powerlifter-esque bull. I learned from the best.
Yes. Well, it's also like it's interesting. Looking at body types and looking at athletes and looking at what their what their function is and how their body types differ from maybe another athlete. I think that's super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, about.
I'm actually looking at You guys probably don't know who Dorian Yates is, but he's a very famous bodybuilder from the 90s.
Mm-hmm. We maybe show Pete
I saw a video with him, and he was talking about he never trains abs ever.
So we've got your screen up at the minute, Pete.
Okay.
Just showing where you're at. So you're just kind
I'm
of
just
roughing it in.
Thumbnail, and I'm just kind of I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't even know if I like the pose. He's kind of just standing there.
Should have thought of that earlier.
All right, back to Tim.
So you're going to redraw it, or are you going to...
Oh, hang on.
No, I think I'll keep it there, but just like adjust it slightly to improve the silhouette.
Yep. Keep
I
trying
think a generic standing pose is pretty safe.
Keep trying
I think everything's safe because I've only got 30 minutes, right?
Yep. That's right. Like 20 minutes now.
Because I was thinking of doing like a screaming pose, but I'm like, oh man, that'll take me a while to figure out.
So yeah, we can definitely see two different styles here where Tim's kind of like blocking things in fairly lightly, and Pete's doing his a bit more kind of like just more really black kind of line, I guess almost like pen and pen style drawing.
And then like mushing it around using transform. I love the transform tool. I mean that's what's great about digital, right?
Yeah.
I mean even like all the comics I do, I just love that about digital, is that you can just change the composition so easily. You just mush things about until it feels right. Mm-hmm. And that's so cool.
Yeah, and I think if you kind of combine that with, that kind of understanding of construction and stuff, then it's so powerful, right?
Yeah.
Or you could just draw it properly the first time.
You could. Oh, there's trash talk happening.
Oh no!
Isn't that what we're doing? Did I miss the memo? I thought we were.
I like it.
Come on, Pete.
I'm just trying my hardest.
Come on, Pete. Get it.
Yep.
Get it better.
No, Pete's the nice one. Remember, he's the one who keeps his jobs. I'm the one who burns all my bridges.
I don't even know how yours is a Minotaur yet, Tim.
Huh?
I don't even know how yours is a Minotaur yet.
What do you mean? What's not
It's
Minotaur?
like it's got one big horn out the front. I'm just looking at this wrong.
It's on the side.
Oh. Oh, I see. That's the eye. I needed the eye. I get it now.
So, were there any questions or?
I don't know. I'm too busy watching you guys draw.
Oh.
No, not really too many questions yet. I think everyone's just kind of watching and stuff.
Everyone's just tuned out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's alright.
So you guys should like kind of follow along and draw your own fantasy Minotaur.
Yeah.
We need to get some. I think maybe that's something we could do in the future streams, right? We need to have like a topic while the stream's going on. People could be drawing and stuff.
Yeah, and they can post it up on the student group.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. We'll see what gets done during the streams from everyone. So yeah, if you got anything, guys, please feel free to post it up on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everyone wants me to hassle you more, Tim.
About?
Huh?
About
just
what?
Trash talking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what they actually say?
Yep.
Who says that? Who's saying that in the chat?
Don't worry, just draw. Come on, Tim. Get it done. Pete's winning at the moment.
Yep. Is he? I don't think so. What kind of weapon has your guys got, Pete?
What weapon are you doing, Pete?
Oh, just a simple. I don't know what do you call it? It's just a simple centurion sword, the stabby one. Is it gladius or something? I don't know that much about weapons.
I don't know. I'm not a Roman nerd.
But this weapon, the sword's scary because it's like, isn't it just built for stabbing dudes?
Well, I think the advantage with that thing is, yeah, like you had to get in close, whereas you don't want to give your your kind of like warriors a long sword. It kind of forced everyone the Roman army to get in close and get nasty. So you had to close. in order to defend yourself.
Hey Pete, Tim's is looking pretty cool.
Oh shit. These are cool. Damn it. Oh, damn it.
Just
I think we should we show Pete's for a
yeah,
bit?
show Pete's for a bit. let him get ahead.
Right, so you're up on the stream, Pete.
Oh yeah, he's got some attitude there. He's he don't care.
Don't care. Oh, how do I do these feet?
Just triangles, bro. Just Rob Liefeld style.
Oh no, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I mean. He's got those hooves. You know?
No, it's a minotaur. Isn't a minotaur is a bull's head on a man's body?
Yeah, but he can have like he can have. There's a lot of minotaurs of like, you know,
No, there's not. There's no minotaurs. There's no minotaurs. There's people drawing bull creatures. I mean,
they have like kind of human back.
I think Pete is just tuning out to your heckling, Tim. Yeah.
Pete, I think what's happening is you're using Google and you Googled Minotaur and it's what every 12-year-old thinks is a Minotaur is what gets clicked. But I'm pretty sure a Minotaur is a man's body with a bull's head.
With a bull's head.
Yeah, but you can draw if you want to.
You know what? That would make it a lot easier for me, to be honest.
If you want to fail, you could draw not a Minotaur and then.
No, I'm gonna do that.
But yours is kind of looking like it's got hooves as well.
Nah, they're just feet.
Huh?
Fuck hooves.
Hooves are too like horses. They're hard to draw.
That's one thing I wish I was better at drawing, to be honest. Just animals, just in general. Yeah, when I was on Puss in Boots, it was like all animals, and I was like, "Oh my god, what am I doing?" and you know, the show's like all over the place in terms of style.
Mm-hmm.
So you have some realistic animals mixed with cartoony animals.
Yep.
There was a horse. His horse is like a realistic horse.
Yeah.
And I had to storyboard him, like all the characters jump on top of him and he runs away.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're getting some feedback, Pete. You should give him a big axe.
Yes.
You could do that.
I could do that. It's getting a little bit late in the game for that, I think.
I think you've got 13 minutes to go.
How much?
13.
No.
Oh, wow, really?
Surely not.
I'm just like making this thumbnail bigger and bigger and into it. I think I might spend a bit more time on his face.
I need
see where it's at with.
I need a bull's head reference. I think I need a better one than what I've got here. I'll look at Pete's.
Look at it. Yours is a bit more kind of antelope-y.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Bulls have... I was looking, I had reference of like...
Yeah.
The guy with...
Here, let me move this. I'll move this.
Yeah.
Does that help a bit?
A little bit. The one with the... Yeah. Yeah, because they've got really big noses. Like that's a big sort of part of it. Like the big flaring nostrils.
Maybe just a more chunkier sort of jaw area. Yeah.
Why did you make Tyler do this?
Because he wouldn't have done it.
Tyler would have chickened out.
It's been a long time since I've done like a demo.
Me too. I just talk these days in class. It's
Oh,
great.
really?
Yeah,
Nothing's changed,
it's
Tim.
my new thing. And show Peter Yong videos. Like, here's a cool thing Peter Yong did. Seriously.
You're famous in Tim's classes, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
Lies.
No. It's true. The chat can confirm.
Shelley's telling you to hurry up.
Really?
Yeah.
Both of us.
No, Shelley's telling Tim that he needs to hurry up in the chat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Man, so cool.
Yeah, that's looking cool, Pete. So someone did sort of ask before, Pete, is like, do you have any tips for like kind of just portfolios, like kind of what people should put in their portfolio?
I mean,
That was
it
kind of
all
fun.
depends on what job you're going for, and you know sometimes it even depends on what studio you're applying for.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
it really is. It can be that specific. Like, if I've heard, if you're applying to Blizzard or something, they want to see you draw in their like house style. You know, that's what they want.
Yeah.
So they want something similar to their kind of look. So it's a tough thing to really say. I think generally only put your best work in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's a tip I can, because someone told me, but you are judged on your worst piece of artwork, and that's something I always think about. So if you've got something that you're like, I think this is kind of crappy, but I'll just put it in there, just leave it out. Because if you put all this really nice work in there, and then you've got one piece that's like a bit dodge, then they'll look at that one piece and they'll be like, what the hell's that doing in there? Like, I don't understand. And they'll start questioning everything else.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the only bit of general advice I can say. And I think everyone has different opinions on this as well.
Well, I think that's a great tip, Pete. I think that's something that we've said in here quite often, is that, it's really, if you try to avoid having, something that's not, your greatest piece in your portfolio, because that's always going to be the thing you kind of judge by.
Yeah.
And it's very true, It's like that kind of ArtStation one I was showing at the start, right? With that 3D kind of work. It was like very consistent,
Very consistent.
and that
like,
really,
that guy is going to deliver.
yeah, and that makes kind of art directors and clients very like more willing to give you a job, because they can see that consistency. But I know that kind of comes with like a lot of experience. You kind of don't, when you're like kind of starting out, it's very hard to do that, but it's just something to aim for.
Yeah.
You got 7 minutes, guys.
No way.
7 minutes.
Yep.
Oh man. You said this is going to be relaxing.
Well, it was kind of relaxing before, wasn't it, Pete? Just talking about stuff and showing your work.
Yakking away.
What did you guys want? A little bonus, 5 minutes
man,
or so?
This is so clean. Oh god.
Uh-oh.
Do you guys want a bonus 5 minutes, or you want to?
I can do bonus 5 minutes.
Okay.
What does Shelley think? Shelley's probably like...
No, that's fine. Yeah. So, all right. So let's go. So we're going to 5 past. So let's go to 10 past. So you got 11 minutes to go. All right. a whole extra 5 minutes.
Now we're just gonna blow it all, trying to draw this arm.
And someone's asking me who I think's winning.
Yeah, who's winning?
I'm not sure. I feel that like
don't give a no amby-pamby answers.
Yeah, I feel that this is what friendships are based on, right? Is my decision in this battle.
we'll let the public decide.
Yeah.
What do you mean people are winning? What do you mean?
Huh?
How do you win?
I don't know. You just win. Didn't you know everything's a competition, Pete?
Huh?
Didn't you know everything in life is a competition, Pete?
Was it on that topic? I don't think it's great to be super competitive about art. Even though me and Tim are kind of competing.
Yeah, I agree.
You're doing it in a jovial way. Yeah.
I never really thought like that. And if someone was better than me, I'd always be actually more excited about what I can learn from them and
can we show Pete's for a second?
And just being around really good people is really exciting. But it always kind of grossed me out how competitive some people get about art.
You're up on the stream. Yeah, I guess that's everyone's. Like everyone has a different tendency towards things, of course. Yeah. You're up on the stream, Pete. So we're just kind of showing what you're doing. It's definitely it's coming along. It's looking pretty cool.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. So you just blocked in some value really quick?
I'm trying to.
Right. We'll let Tim get back to drawing. Hang on.
Right, stealing it.
Sorry. It's alright, okay.
Alright. I think decisions.
Is there any things you kind of really getting inspiration from lately, Pete? Like any big influences, kind of storyboard wise or drawing wise or anything?
I'm actually getting into anime again recently.
Yeah, right.
I know, because I haven't really watched much for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched Attack on Titan.
Oh yeah.
So that shows how out of the loop I've been. And so I watched all of that, and that was pretty cool. It's got a very interesting it's just so grim.
Yep.
For the majority of it.
Did you read the manga?
No, I haven't.
Is it cool? Have you read it, Tim?
Yeah, I haven't watched the anime, but I read up to a certain point, and then I think I read up to the current point, and I haven't gone back and sort of looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty good. It's actually a really good example of how do I make them? Why would you want big layer icons? It's a good example of basically I feel like an artist who you can see growing in front of you. Who's maybe not didn't start out as the best artist, but you can really see how they kind of improve quickly and kind of get better at drawing backgrounds and all that sort of stuff. It's because I think people often they come and they sort of look at that stuff once people are good and once people have gotten to a certain point in their career. And yeah, it's important to notice that not everyone starts out being amazing, you know, and especially in comics, you know, people's like first sort of thing is often, you know, maybe a bit rough.
Yeah, I remember when I tried to read the comic, but the artwork was just so bad at the beginning.
Yes.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, but it gets better, like in its and I feel like it's also a good, like, you know, because there's so many, like, you know, giant characters versus small characters, and you can really see how, like, the artist just develops so many cool shots and ways of sort of showing the scale, you know, in such a, you know, because that, I think that's part of what sort of sells that book to a certain degree, and that whole idea is just that, you know, the crazy scale difference between you know, the giants and the humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a good example of how you should just draw it. You know, if you got an idea, just do it. I think the idea was like a pretty cool idea.
And you know, I was thinking about the Titans as like an enemy. They're so weird, but they are like terrifying.
Yes. Yep.
These weird, I don't know.
It's very Freudian. I feel like that's gonna. Yeah, it's well done.
I'm just starting to watch My Hero Academia.
Oh yeah.
I love the character design in that show. It's really cool, and just the way that characters are like animated and the story seems pretty cool. I've only gotten not super far into it, but
should I know what this is?
I think it's a kind of a recent one. Yeah, I don't know how old it is, but
what's it called, Pete?
My Hero Academia.
Okay.
It's about a group of like, it's like X-Men, but they're like kids and they're like in school.
Yeah.
Heroes. And they all have different powers and stuff.
Uh-oh, I think Tim's bringing the colour in now.
Where's your colour,
Really?
Pete?
Oh my god, you're so efficient. See, I knew this would happen. See, I kind of like just smash it in because I'm not really used to designing quickly.
Yeah.
I guess I'm used to just drawing poses quickly and that kind of stuff. So I'm just like fiddling. It seems like very organized and thoughtful. But I'm just like, I'm just gonna go for it.
Do you ever have times, Pete, where you got to do something like, you know, really quickly for a client in terms of like a design type of thing, or do you find with that they kind of tend to give you a bit more time?
Well, they give me more than 30 minutes.
Let's hope so.
But it's usually like, you know, like kind of very simple cartoon characters.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, you know, I'm not used to drawing armor and stuff, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty much everything I do is like, we need it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need it. It's not often where, you know, you get a long time to spend on illustration. Because, you know, my stuff isn't illustration, it's either concept, like production work, or storyboards.
Yeah.
Which I guess production work as well.
You guys have got like 3 minutes to go.
Uh-oh. Don't talk to me. I'm busy drawing. How'd the color get down there?
I don't know.
Well, I think, you know, when I am pretty time poor, I try and get the guts of it in, like the face.
Yep.
You know, I spend a little bit more time on the face, and it gets slowly worse is it goes down to the feet. But it's funny, if you do kind of sell the face, it just really ties things together.
Yeah.
I know it's something like the Carlo Aureliano does a lot.
Yeah, it's just kind of get that focal point working and sort of leave everything else to the imagination a little bit.
Yeah. But you also kind of, you naturally just focus on the face when you look at the character.
Yeah.
You know?
And you're going to be in Adelaide soon, right? For for the holiday workshop that you're going to be teaching.
Yeah. So I wrote this weekend, Sunday.
Wow, that's quick.
Yeah, and for the masterclass. So
when is the masterclass?
Is
exactly
next week.
Really?
Yeah.
That's soon.
It is very soon. Yes. So yeah, if any of you guys don't know, we've got Eitan Zana and Vaughn Ling coming out from LA for a masterclass. The event is like totally sold out, so there is no tickets left. So I apologize. It's probably why I'm not plugging it very much.
Yeah.
Because there is no room. It's full. But yeah, and then kind of like a couple weeks after that, Pete is doing a holiday workshop here at CW Studios, which is a 2-day kind of event on a weekend. And yeah, that is not sold out. There is quite a good number of people coming, but it's not sold out. So if any of you guys want to kind of come along to that and see more from Pete and, kind of lots of storyboarding and little kind of ways to design characters, then
you're gonna be doing much storyboarding? Because I know lots of students are always asking,
they're asking
about storyboarding. Yeah.
No, I'm not going to be doing. I mean, I've only got.
Yeah.
What? 2 days.
2 days, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Storyboarding's tricky.
It's like we'll give you like 2 minutes.
Oh Jesus, no! Zoom out. Oh god. Trying to add some sort of shadow. A shadow of human.
What are the noises? Do they help you draw?
The drawing noises. Help me.
The winning drawing noises.
They're the extra 5%, Tim.
Yeah. All right.
On the design. Yeah.
That's what makes it happen.
Yeah. I think it's like 30 seconds, guys.
Just want to live. Yeah, come on the stream, it'll be heaps chilled. It needs to be more ball-like. I'd like to put more ball hair on the shoulders. Always think of this right at the last minute.
I'm up to rendering, Pete. How you doing?
Right. 10 seconds to go.
10 seconds. That's no fair. What? Who's going to stop me drawing?
What's that?
Who's going to stop me drawing?
I don't know.
Oh, damn, it's so good. Oh, damn it. What a look at that. It hurts.
Oh, wow. Look, I feel like your guys got way more detail.
Nah, bros. Look how cool little guy is. Look at him.
So for all you guys
that cool axe, that primitive axe. Oh.
So for all you guys on the stream, like Pete is watching the stream, so he's drawing, and he can see Tim drawing, and then Tim also has the Skype screen up, so they can both see each other's drawings here. So it's kind of fun.
That's so cool.
Fun / terrifying.
Yeah, that's all right. You guys can handle it.
Well, I hope so.
All right, that's it.
You gonna call it?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm still doing some stuff. I'm cheating.
You gotta lift up the pen, Tim.
Lift up
That's
the pen.
so cool, Tim.
Can we
Look at that dude.
Make that small.
What a dude.
kind of do this?
Wow.
I want him to be my friend.
You drew too much armor, Pete. It was slowing you down.
I know.
So much.
I know that I don't know how to draw. But I tried.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so there you have it, guys. I don't know who wins. We probably need a decision in the chat.
Oh, don't. We're all winners.
I like his proportions. I wish I pushed my proportions more, like made him more like stocky. He's still got that like human body.
Yeah. I always like the look of that guy, you know, like the old gladiator in Gladiator.
Yeah. The massive dude.
The massive dude, like the really old guy.
Yeah.
Who's still a gladiator. And he just had that like really chunky
That's
sort
cool.
of broad frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my head could have been smaller.
Yeah, that might have made him look bigger.
You might have made him look a bit bigger. But that always happens.
I think everyone is pretty happy with how they turned out, guys. So yeah, we're getting lots of they're both awesome. So yeah, I mean for 30 minutes, right? Pretty cool.
30 to 50 minutes.
Yeah, 30. Well, it's kind of like
I think 40. It was 40 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that.
40. But
No, I reckon it was 40 minutes.
Reference gathering and pausing
and pausing and faffing about.
Yeah.
And getting 404 errors on Google when every bull image I ever clicked for some reason.
Yeah. So maybe do you want to stop the screen sharing, Pete, and just turn it off, and
we can post these to our Pinterest.
Yeah, we'll put them up on the Pinterest page. Hey, so yeah, let's do that. So you need to send it to me, Pete. So just email it to me, and we'll put it up. You can spend an extra 10 minutes on it if you want. Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, all I like to say is like, thanks for joining us tonight, Pete.
No worries.
Yeah, it's been really good. So
it's been awesome chatting, man.
Yeah, and lots of cool information for everyone, and I think there was definitely some good stuff for you guys, kind of thinking about portfolios and starting out in the industry and all that kind of stuff. I guess we kind of focus on that a bit every kind of show, but I think it's stuff that everyone's kind of wanting to know about.
If people keep asking, we obviously have not talked about it enough, right?
Yeah,
that's
so, and it's always good to get a different point of view as well, just from yours and mine, which everyone kind of gets around
I
the
think
place,
that's
so,
right, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I think people hear us talk about it a lot, and it's interesting. You see some different opinions, and it's always about the things everyone agrees on. You can probably bank that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But we should do it again soon.
Yeah,
Pete. Draw off.
That's right. I think
have more time next time.
Yeah. We should do an environment one, Pete. A matte painting battle off.
Oh god.
Huh?
Yeah, that would be funny. Me and Pete trying to photo bash some stuff.
Oh jeez, do a matte painting?
Yes.
Like a quick matte painting.
Equally funny would be me doing a character battle off against you guys. So yeah, that'd be pretty funny. Also, yeah. All right.
Awesome.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap that up, guys. And if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat or on the Facebook, in the event page. And we're going to keep working through all the Twitch stuff and trying to make everything as cool as we possibly can. We're going to keep working on the subscriber stuff, and hopefully by next week we'll have some kind of things up and running that will kind of be pretty cool, and let you guys know where that's happening. And thanks again, Pete. Awesome to have you on the show. And I think that's it, guys. So see you next week.
That's it. See you later.
Okay.